Good evening, YouTube world. I'm your host, Paul Italia. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to our channel. Welcome to the Arm Wrestling Buzz episode 72. We got the Arm Wrestling Buzz crew in the house. We got Matt Hollywood Conley coming in from India. And we got
That's it.
tonight's two special guests in the house. We got Dave Stockbridge. He is one of the owners of the AWE out of Australia. What's up, Dave? How are you? And we got
Thanks,
my
mate.
man, Chocolate Thunder, Jody Williams in the house. What's up, Jody? How are you, bro?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on the show, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure to have both of you guys on here. So I want to first start off, man. I hear this great event that's coming up October 27th in Australia. So, Dave, I want to kind of get your insights on it and kind of just get all the details out there for all the subscribers out there.
For sure. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on as well. Really appreciate it. We've AWE Grand Prix 2 is happening in Adelaide on the 27th of October. It's a double elimination 8-man event. There will be a round robin to decide who will fill that 8th position. So that's something extra to look forward to. We've also got a Trans-Tasman trophy between the two strongest arm wrestlers from New Zealand and Australia. So we're going to find out who is the top female arm wrestler in the region on the 27th of October here in Adelaide as well. So we've got Ashley Hoeta making her way over and Keziah Harrington coming over, who's the current Australian champion. So, and for those that don't know Ashley is the first woman in history to bench press more than 300 kilograms. So that is one strong woman. So we're going to see what she can do on the table here in Australia on the 27th of October.
And I got to get Matt, what is 300 kilograms in pounds, just for our American subscribers?
660.
660. Oh my God. Oh wow. That is just next level. Jody, what's up, brother?
Hold on. As in 660 pounds?
Pounds, yeah, correct.
Ooh. Oh man, that's scary strong.
Well, I think it's even higher than that because it's 315 kilos. So it would be higher than that as well. There's a fantastic video of her doing that bench press with Eddie Hall kind of narrating it. Yeah, that's a pin to top video on Instagram right now. So head over to Ashley Hoeta on Instagram and you'll see her sitting underneath, over 315 kilograms and pushing it up seemingly with ease.
And how many years has she been arm wrestling for now?
694 pounds. Sorry, we've just.
Oh my God, dude! It's almost like a car. It's next level.
So we're going to see what she can do on the arm wrestling table because I believe that she took out the New Zealand championships and she won her way through to the East versus West qualifier as well. So for Southeast Asia, so she'll be working her way into that mix into the not too distant future. But we originally had Ashley up against Sarah Backman, but because of pro punja obligations from Matt and Ryan, which we're going to get into in a little while as well. We had to postpone the event, so we lost Sarah because she's a busy lady, so she had to move on to the next thing, and so we missed that opportunity. But it's still going to be great to see Ashley showcase the skills on the table against Australia's best.
Yeah, so who's the lady that she's pulling? Like, how long has she been in the sport? Give us a little background about her.
Yeah, that's Keziah Harrington. So Matt might want to speak a little bit more to her background.
Yeah, Keziah is the #1 in Australia on the right arm. She does actually have a history of matches with Ashley, which unfortunately for her, she ended up losing. So she's looking for revenge. She wants her win back against Ashley, and she's looking for revenge at AWE Grand Prix 2 on October 27th. But she's a top roller. She's 80 kilos. She's she's fairly tall. She's almost 6 foot if she's not 6 foot, and reasonably new to the sport, still only a couple of years in, but she is definitely the best right hand female in Australia at this point in time.
What's exciting is I think she's only 18 or 19 as well, so she's really young, so many years ahead of her in the sport too.
And how much is 80 kilograms?
Well, that's about 180 pounds,
Yeah,
I'm guessing, off the top of my head.
I think 72 is 180. Yeah.
And what's Ashley weighing at?
A lot,
That's
a lot more than that.
about 125 kilos, so it's 2.2 pounds per.
We don't talk about a woman's weight on the show.
Well, that's the only exception is when we're talking arm wrestling here. We gotta break it down like that, so we got an idea. But I'm really interested to see how this transfers over this power of 690 pounds bench pressing, on the arm wrestling table. Jody, how do you think that's gonna go, man? You think that she's gonna come in and just be that next phenom that nobody could touch and all? And obviously, she's got to be top level. They had her going up against Sarah Glockman.
I was looking forward to that match, and unfortunately, we won't see it now. Maybe down the road. I think there is potential there. I will say this: as of right now, if she learns how to slip and get into the strap until she can figure out what her style is and where her technique is, I think it's sky's the limit. Because think about it: if you're bench pressing, motorhomes or whatnot, and you get into a strap with that young lady, you ain't going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. When you arm wrestle, when you break everything down in the sport, it goes like this. To have the will to move a person from here to there, she has the will. And, when you lock up with someone like that in the strap, that's kind of scary. But the thing is, though, what you got to realize is that being new to the sport, does she know how to slip? Because if she doesn't, and someone takes advantage and just manipulates the hand and wrist, it's a different game.
Matt, does she press at all? Is she a presser? Because I know, people that usually get that big bench press go right into that press, like a Jerry Catterick style.
Yeah, no, I think she's still figuring out her style, but it seems to be a lot of side pressure at this point in time, and that's probably very natural for her to be just pushing straight sideways. She did end up actually winning the East versus West qualifier event on left arm, the international competition. So yeah, she's up there with international standards for sure.
So how long has she been pulling? How long has she actually been on the table?
Like 8 months or something insane like that.
Wow.
That is crazy. Yeah. Well, I'm excited about that one. I want to see this match for sure.
She's a female Brian Shaw, essentially. That's where we're at with her.
What's the height?
It seems to be that. I think she's probably she's fairly tall as well. I reckon she's almost 6 feet, but it seems to be all these people are coming out of the woodwork for getting involved in arm wrestling, which is phenomenal to see. I mean, we've got guys like Rickard Borman, who's I think he's 20 years old now, but just over a year in the sport, and he's done so much already. He's already won the AWE heavyweight title. He's had matches against Mariton Barkas. He's training with Lachlan Adair and Ryan Bowen and doing very, very well in the training room. He's got his match lined up with Don Hollywood Underwood at in January at Knuckles Up, the next Knuckles Up event. So for 20 years old and just over a year to achieve that already, and then you got ladies like Ashley, 8 months into the sport. And I believe that she got into it through Mataburingi Hannah Morris from New Zealand, because obviously he's the bench press champion over there. So I think that they got involved together in the weight room somehow or another, and he convinced her to get on the table, and then she was just a phenom straight off the bat.
I can't wait. And then tell us more about this 8-man round robin. Is it a round robin that we got going on?
It's a double elimination tournament. So yeah, it's 8-man, and it's an invitation only tournament. And we had one earlier in the year, which you can find on the AWE Underground YouTube channel for free. This will also be out there for free once we've got it all done and dusted. It'll be on October the 27th. But yes, double elimination. So you have to lose twice to be eliminated. And it just follows a standard tournament structure. But essentially, it seems to be at this point in time that we've gathered the 7 biggest and strongest possible people that we could find in the Southern Hemisphere, and we're throwing them all against Rickard Borman.
So Drew24, thank you for posting that up. That's the link to the AWE Underground channel. So definitely, guys, get over there. Go check out the first one that they threw, and we'll get to go check it out live October 27th. And when is the actual, time for North America? Do you guys know the Eastern Standard Time or anything like that?
Yeah, so if it's 12:30 on a Sunday here for us, it should be Saturday night in the US. But yeah, the Drew will he'll know. He knows it all.
He'll inform everyone.
And then check out that belt we got over there. Dave, show that off, man. That thing is beautiful, bro. Wow. That is something. And that is owned by Rickard Borman right now, correct?
Correct.
And, whoever wins this 8-man is going to be going home with that.
Yeah, but the coolest thing about that is, like, Dave is such an amazing sponsor, and we wouldn't have the AWE if it wasn't for Dave Stockbridge. But every athlete that wins one of our belts gets to keep that belt forever. And then if somebody gets the title, if they defeat that person, then they get their own new belt. But if you've won one of our belts, you get to keep it forever.
So this isn't Rickard's belt. This is whoever wins it after Rickard's belt. So young arm wrestlers, maybe this is something to aspire to one day. This could be wrapped around your waist or over your shoulder. So
can you imagine
that Rickard holds the belt for a little while yet? So time will tell.
Can you imagine going to the airport with that thing? Like, you're walking through customs, right? And all of a sudden you got that strap on your shoulder, and people are kind of looking at you, and they're kind of going, "Oh, he must be doing something." And like, they look at you as, hey, AWE. I'm thinking, okay, he must be a professional wrestler of some sort. Then you get people getting photos, and they want to kind of, hey, what you got? Can you imagine that right now, man?
I'm gonna do it when I come back from India. I'm just gonna wear one through the airport and just see if anyone's gonna come up.
I see Jody's eyes like popping out when he's seen that belt. He might be showing up at the next Australian big meet over there trying to win one of those. I see he's getting a little excited. He's already fantasizing about walking home through the airport with it.
I'm fantasizing what kind of pose I'm gonna do with it. Man.
Would you go with the over the shoulder pose, or would you have it round the traditional round the waist? What are you thinking, Jody?
Well, I got to work on this midsection, so right now I'll probably be over my shoulder. But nonetheless, though, I'll be getting pictures and making posters and stuff because, man, I'm telling you, like, arm wrestling has evolved as far as awards. Like, it's always been plaques, trophies, or medals, and they're still good. But now we've evolved into like belts, rings, hammers, hatchets, bullets, all kind of stuff. And I like that now because it's different. Statues, all that stuff.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the belt. I was always one of those into the wrestling, the WWF, and back in the day. So I always dreamed of getting one of those for sure.
Yes, bullets. So, like this bad boy right here.
He wasn't playing. Holy shit.
So, wow.
This one is from the Freedom Pool 2018 Nevada. So there's that bullet, right? And then this is from my super match I won in 2019. So
very cool.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I mean.
We got to upgrade to bullets, I think.
You got to get like a cannon or something next.
How do you get to the airport? It was driving distance, because you also got to realize that I would have never got on a plane with that. They would have pulled me aside and go, "Sir, come here." So I'm glad I was able to drive to that tournament. But when you get to like the Midwest in Kansas City, and they got those hatchets and stuff like that and swords, I'm like, they ain't letting you get on the airplane with that. So if I were to win one, I would say, "Hey, guy, Ryan Johnston, hey, could you do me a favor and just mail that to me? Because there's no way they're gonna let me on the plane, let alone keep it." And you worked hard for that.
I had to go through the airport with Jerry that time, and I think it was the helmet and the shield we had to go, and now we're going through Turkey, and to get home you got to go through like 8 X-rays and all these different security points, and nobody speaks English, and they're all looking at him with his helmet and his shield on. It was the funniest thing going through the airport. It was a good time for sure.
If it really is your helmet, put it on. Let's see if it fits.
Are we talking about helmets?
Oh, he's got one of those too. Oh my God, Jody ain't playing, man.
Because
Oh,
from memory,
wow, there you go,
Jerry's
bro.
helmet didn't fit. That's pretty
He's
cool.
a
That's my master
gladiator.
fight. That is very cool.
This was from the Aries Super Series one. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
just
That
like,
is very cool.
It's nothing like, East versus West, but still, I mean, I got a few interesting trinkets back here on these shelves over here. So
That is very cool.
That's very cool.
Mr. Peanut, he was, he brought this up when we were talking about Ashley and all the power lifter, and he says powerlifters need to learn proper core rotation to apply their power. Think of opponent's hands like a shot put and rotate through hand into pad, not stand there and pull similar to a strict curl. Yes, that is true, 100%. And then we got Rio Salvatore says Louisiana has nice belts. Yes, they actually do at Louisiana State Championships. I remember that. I took a picture with 2 of their belts, and it kind of reminded me of the AWE ones, the really official next level. You can see they put some real money into that. And that just having things like that makes everybody want to go to the event and, try to win that and all.
I will say this. What makes the Louisiana belt special is the fact that if you go down there and win your weight class, you get your name in the year you won engraved on one of the side planks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody knew that, but yeah.
It's just like
that is very cool. But
Mm.
I mean, I kind of like it better where these guys, once you win your belt, you get to keep it for life. It's like you get to hang that up in the gym, or that'd be some really cool thing right there for sure.
Right behind me if I were winning that thing. So
every podcast, I'd have that draped around my shoulder, like, yeah, what's up, guys?
Yes, sir.
So I want to ask you guys.
We'll make a cowboy hat one.
There you go. I'll have to come out to Australia for that one for sure. Then. So I want to ask you guys. So tell me about how AWE has evolved since its inception. Like, and what are the future plans for your league?
Okay. Okay.
You go for it, Dave.
Okay. So okay, so we've been on a journey. There's no doubt. When we started off, I think we were really clear in. Firstly, it was opportunistic. So we had an opportunity to stage a great event and to have world-class AV at it, and those opportunities don't come up often, especially if they're free. So for us, it was a great chance to put on a world-class arm wrestling event, and we started discussing that with Ryan just casually, and then Ryan had an upcoming super match at the time with
Chance
Shaw, yeah, and so it was like, well, that would be a nice little topper for this event that we would like to do, and so we had an ISCA certified MMA cage. We had the AV guys sorted out. It was at another event, so we were basically piggybacking on there, but it was an opportunity to put on a really cool show. And that show, AWE1, ended up being the biggest show in oceanic history. We got some of the biggest competitors from around the region and put them in the cage at the one time. So we had Marcus Satirai, Gunter Spykovs, Mario Tembakis, Lachlan Carpenter. These are big names in Australian arm wrestling, and all in the one place at the one time. And so that was, like I say, it was opportunistic, and we got a taste for it. And we thought, you know what, here's a chance for us to do something significant in the region, and to provide a platform for athletes that mightn't otherwise have a world-class platform. So we moved along with AWE2, which was also held in an MMA cage. It was held here in Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval, which for cricket fans around the world, which there mightn't be many in America, but they'd all be aware of the Adelaide Oval. It's quite a hallowed sporting location, an iconic sporting venue. And so we were able to hold a world-class event there. And at that event, we had Jordan Sill, we had Todd Hutchins, we had the cast of Australian arm wrestlers like Marcus Tiro, Gunter Spykov's back, and of course Ryan Bowen, always putting on a show, Matuarengi, the Beast Ted Morris, all present, and that was fantastic, and it was a great show, and it's my humble opinion that it sent shockwaves through the arm wrestling establishment, because if you do recall, the Monday after that, our newly crowned Intercontinental Champion Todd Hutchins was offered the very first exclusive contract by East versus West, or Core Sports Contracts as it become known now. And that began the exclusive contract signing that caused some controversy back then, 18 months or so ago. And so that limited our opportunities because we were really reliant on bringing over some big names. And now we'd had our proof of concept. We understood that we had a formula that could definitely be commercially successful. And so we were marching towards that. But then we're tripped over by exclusive contracts. We weren't able to secure the big names to substantiate the huge investment that's required in order to put on world-class events consistently. And so we had to take another tack. We could have either given up or kind of found a way. And our enthusiasm for the sport such that we didn't want to give it all away. And we felt that we could take the brand underground, take it away from the spotlight, take it away from that ESPN world-class kind of style of presentation, and just take it back to sheds, huge dudes in sheds competing for status more than anything. And so that's what we did. And we literally filmed our next event in Marcus Tirai's shed with the best arm wrestlers from around the region, and who were unsigned and able to compete. There were, one or two there that mightn't have been able to be there, unfortunately for us, but because of all of that, all of the contract stuff. But nonetheless, we were able to put on an event and we decided, instead of going down the pay-per-view road, if we are going to go with an alternative strategy, then we want to make this product freely available. We want to encourage as many people to be exposed to these emerging athletes as possible, and to continue to shine a light on those new those arm wrestlers that are entering the sport, that are looking to boost their profile and create international opportunities. And we wanted to be that place, that home for them. And so we ran some T-Series events as a bit of community building and connecting with that next level of talent that's out there and around the country as well. And so some of that content's up there and on our YouTube page as well. And now we've rolled forward to, we had our first Grand Prix event, which was very much the same aesthetic as our previous underground specials. And so very gritty, very in the shed, post-produced and then released. And this opportunity to hold this next event, this next AWE Grand Prix, is born out of a pivot that we made in our business a little while ago to really see what we can do to work more closely with people in our region, and in particular the guys at Pro Punja. And so we were to host an event here in Adelaide about a year or so ago, which was to feature the 4 top arm wrestlers in India. But because of visa issues and timing and things, we weren't just quite able to pull it together. So we put that away, moved on with the Grand Prix event. We had already paid for the room, so we already had the venue all organised, and the AV guys and everything was all paid for. So when we felt ready, we thought, you know what, we're going to revisit that. And so you're going to see another evolution of AWE at this Grand Prix event. You're going to see a world-class standard of production. We think this will be the best-looking production in the arm wrestling world. We're going to do it on a shoestring budget, and we're going to show the rest of the world how it's done. So we're pulling together some of the best arm wrestlers of our region and throwing them at Ricky Borman and seeing if anybody can beat him. And if they can, I think AWE is going to serve as a platform for that athlete as well as what it has for Ricky Borman over recent times. So that's our hope, and that's what we want to continue to do, is be that platform, be that place where regional arm wrestlers get that opportunity to springboard into the international stratosphere.
Wow.
The key word in all that, opportunity. That is the key word on that. Athletes, unsigned. Because now that arm wrestling where it's at right now, and we got all these different promotions and organizations, because we have a big boom in our sport. So it would make sense to have a bunch of organizations. They cater to everybody. And what I mean by that is that not every organization is doing the exact same thing across the board. Everyone's doing a little something different. You guys, AWE, hey, we're going to have a round robin, 8-man round robin, and then it signifies, okay, you got belts and everything, but you're doing things a little bit different here, because you guys are trying to put a spotlight on some international pullers that maybe people here in the States don't know about, aside from, Lachlan Adair, Ryan Bowen, and Tim Buskus. But now it's just getting the word out there. And I think you guys are doing a great thing. And tip my hat to you guys.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we feel like we're moving forward, and we've had to evolve and the reason why we're going with a round robin or a double elimination style tournament is exactly that. Everybody's moved into that super match space, and it would be Matt's preference that we do super matches as well, because it's become the pinnacle of the sport, but it also takes us out of competition with everybody else. And for the athletes, I think a tournament structure they take a little less seriously, and rightfully so. I mean, it's good to take the event seriously and want to win the belt, but how they perform or how they place in a tournament is going to be vastly different to how they might match up against somebody in a super match. So I don't think it hurts any of these athletes' chances of that next super match that they might be planning or that next step that they want to take in their career if they come and have a bad performance at an AWE Grand Prix event. So I think it's, come and have a go. It's great fun. You might be showing the world something they hadn't seen about you, but ultimately, if you place last, it's not going to be detrimental to your next super match opportunity that might be waiting for you there on the international stage.
Yeah, I remember
when you. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. I just wanted to comment real quick on one of your comments from before when you said that Jordan Sill, you guys flew him out there. I actually was at that event in Washington when he won his stay. I remember Ryan Bowen, I believe, put out a challenge where if anybody could pin Mario Tambakis, I believe, and Jordan actually did it, and the whole place erupted because they knew he was getting the trip to Australia and all, and I was standing right next to him and all. I was one of the promoters of that event. So, you just struck a chord when you told me about that, and that was a great event. I remember watching that and all. And somebody has a question and ask, is Bowen still involved with AWE?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So,
He's a driving force. I mean, we all sort of bring our own special skill sets and help each other and work together. It's what's so great about being able to share the load. Having Dave Stockbridge, who, if people don't know, owns his own real estate company, real estate agents group, and so he knows all about marketing and how to push brands and build the companies and all of that sort of thing. Brian Bowen obviously has international experience on basically every major promotion, knows the majority of high level athletes throughout the world. And we're all sort of helping each other and working together every day to put this event together, as opposed to it all sort of laying on one person. And I think we've seen the result of people who try to take it all on by themselves and just get overwhelmed or stressed or lash out at their fans or, so it's the advantage of having three people as opposed to one. And yeah, Ryan Bowen is absolutely very heavily invested in AWE.
And for those that might have thought exactly that as well, just jump onto the AWE YouTube channel. You'll see a great match on there with Ryan versus Mazahir Saidu for the AWE Intercontinental Belt that took place last year. One of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. Not playing favoritism, but just a fantastic match to watch. And and you can catch up on everything over there.
And is there any other big organizations going on throwing events in Australia, or are you guys like the main one and only one over there?
There is the amateur organisation, which is the Australian Arm Wrestling Federation, which is basically WAF, like the WAF, their Australian version. So they run tournaments in most of the states throughout the year, and then they have a national tournament as well. But in terms of the professional side, where people are being paid and the big marketing promotions behind certain athletes and all that, it's AWE only.
Wow. So you guys are kind of the ones that are the main platform and kind of showcasing all the Australian and athletes from New Zealand and Tahiti and kind of making them a worldwide presence. That's kind of like the overall goal for you guys? And is that what the plan is?
Yeah, absolutely. The ability for somebody to be a professional athlete in the sport of arm wrestling is our goal. For somebody to choose this sport as their career and actually earn money, have marketing opportunities that we create through our driving force when we're putting an event together, and just spotlighting people that maybe have never been seen before by the US audiences or European audiences, because for us, these guys are phenomenal athletes, and maybe they'd never get a shot at, these other organizations, Knuckles Up or any of these places, because, even though they're phenomenal, people have never heard of them or they've seen them. And then so for us to be able to showcase them and say, hey, well, look at these guys, they're incredible. And if they have these wars and, it's presented in a really good manner and we've marketed it well and people know the athlete's story, they're more likely to get an opportunity, not only with AWE, but with some other organizations as well.
We got a question from John Boy. He says, can you please ask if they would ever invite an international athlete to pull Rickard?
Only if his name was John Boy. I think that's actually, strangely enough, this was discussed this morning. So you may be psychic, John Boy. So definitely, we're very, very open to that.
The amount of offers that have come in for Rickard since that first AWE Grand Prix, I think we can honestly say that every single major organization has reached out to have Rickard Bornman appear on their event. So we will see him on Knuckles Up in January, but you also see him at AWE Grand Prix. But there is a lot of things happening for that young man.
And that was really gratifying from our perspective, because exactly what we're trying to do is create a platform. And then when you do get the response, when the arm wrestling world recognizes, one of these athletes, all of a sudden it's really exciting. It's great to see.
And Jody, you got a question?
Yeah, it's more of a comment. And, I'm trying to see how I don't want to be breaking down the fourth wall, but I'm going to say it because, hey, this is rated R. I'm going to say it anyway. Another reason why I like what you guys are doing, because what Matt just said, there may be athletes who probably won't be able to be on other organizations. And that's okay, because what you guys are doing, maybe you might not see those guys on a King of the Table or a East vs. West, but what you guys are doing will still get exposure. It's still top quality athletes over there to pull from. So there's no shame in that, So whether it be AWE, AWC, A&W Root Beer, whatever, the point being is that there's some serious athletes around that a lot of people don't know about. And the only reason we're going to find out is if guys like yourselves are going to expose, hey, guys, we got good pullers here, too, in our region of the country. Or, hell, we got good pullers in our region of the globe, so to speak. And it's only a matter of time where, we'll get South Korea involved, when maybe we'll take a guy from the States or Canada or Western Europe or whatever the case may be. And then word will catch on, and next thing you know, boom, bada, there you go.
Yeah. We're starting to see that with clubs and regions collaborating overseas in Australia. Really, it comes down to having a bit of a following, curating that following. For as long as you're getting attention, then there's an opportunity to commercialize that, monetize that, create opportunities even greater with the next event, and just keep stepping forward. As long as you're staying alive, and as long as you're stepping forward and doing something bigger and better with the next one, then you have a great chance to highlight athletes and to give them that platform and to move them forward. And it doesn't matter if it's AWA or anyone. I'm seeing it happen all around the world right now. People are collaborating and getting great content out there, creating profiles for themselves out of nowhere in the arm wrestling world, and all of a sudden coming into consideration. The athletes that have the following, the athletes that have the social clout are going to be the ones that get heard first. They're going to be the ones that end up getting the phone call from the promoters, because it's not about whether you're number 1 or number 8 or number 85 in the world. If you're number 85 and you've got a great following, then you know what? We'll find number 84 and put them up and see a war, and people want to see that. And that'd be a great match. So, and people are going to get engaged. People are going to want to see it, and they're going to want to hear the story. And then they're going to want to see you try and get to 65 and then 55. And then, one day be right up there. And that's the journey. We all want to be part of someone else's journey. And that's what we're trying to do. And I can see others trying to do exactly the same thing around the world.
See, once again, separating yourself from everybody else. Good job.
We got a question from Wrong Shrub, and he says, is Bowen pulling in the AWE event?
Yes, he will be. He'll be part of that AWE Grand Prix too. I can actually read out the list of contestants if you'd like to hear it, Paul.
Oh, yes, please.
All right. Well, starting off, you've got the defending champion, Rickard Bornemann. He's the current AWE heavyweight champion. He'll be looking to defend his title. And then we've also got Ryan Bowen. I always got to say Ryan Blue Bowen, but he's dropped the blue, but it's still in my mind when it goes to flow in that Ryan Blue Bowen. But yes, Ryan Bowen will be competing as well. This is essentially the biggest people we can find. So we've got Marcus Atirai, who's also from Brisbane. He trains at the same club as Lachlan Adair and Ryan Bowen. An absolute monster of a man, 165 kilos, which is, I don't know, what is that, 300 and something pounds. Yeah, 400, 500 pounds, let's call it that. This huge Samoan. He is a very powerful man. Yeah, Tahitian. He is a Tahitian. That's right. Yeah, that's right. We've also got from Adelaide, the SA Titans club, Joel Hewitt. His nickname is Stretch because he's 6'8" and 150 kilos, which, man, he's a monster as well. He's an enormous man, an enormous top roller. To go alongside of him, we have a man who's a bit shorter in Taryn Broad. He sort of sits around the high 80 kilo mark, which is around almost the 200. Yeah, about 200 pounds. But he's known as the Giant Killer for a good reason. Incredibly strong in the hook. We've also got Charles Puri, who is second in New Zealand behind Matawaringi Heta Morris, and he's been pushing Matawaringi for the last couple of years. Another monster of a man. These guys, when you line them up, it's like they together are the reason that they have weight limits in lifts. Like if these people got into a lift together, that lift is hitting the bottom floor without a doubt. So we've got Charles Puri, Ryan Bowen, Brett Coots as well from Melbourne, who is a multiple national time Australian champion, and he looks like a Mr. Olympia competitor. He's also
like a
bodybuilder,
but in life size. That's what he actually looks like. Yeah.
But one of my favorite moments with Brett Coots was we ran a tournament series up in Queensland. It was a very hot day. He had a super match, and he took his shirt off after the super match. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of these ladies, these middle-aged ladies, just appeared. And they were just sort of in big groups, pretending that they were talking to each other, but they were all just standing and staring at Brett. But he's also going to be competing. Yeah, that's right. A very attractive appeal he holds there. So it's and so the 8th place we were going to have the number 1 from Tahiti, but unfortunately he has had to pull out. This has only happened in the last couple of days. So we've got a round robin that's going to happen prior to the event, probably next Sunday, I believe, with 4 of the guys at the SA Titans Armwrestling Club who are at the top level of the rankings there, and they're going to duel it out and see who can steal that 8th place. And so it's going to be a phenomenal event. There is it's like you've got Rickard Bornemann, who already is a big man, and then he's going to be surrounded by even bigger, stronger, giant, super heavyweight guys that are going to be trying to take that belt from him.
So who do you think has the best chance of taking that belt from him? If you had to say one guy, who are you thinking that we got to really put on our radar? You know, I'm hearing a 6'8" guy. I'm hearing a 500 pounder. Like who's the guy that's going to give him the most trouble? Do you think?
Joel.
I think
Joel Hewitt is the dark horse.
He is. They're all the dark horse. Every one of these guys has the potential to be able to win this tournament. They're all enormous. They're all incredibly strong. And we know what happens in tournaments is it's very unpredictable, especially a double elimination where you might be coming in as the number 1 seed, but you get in a couple of wars, and by the time you make it to the finals, you're absolutely wrecked, whereas somebody else might have cruised through their matches and they've walked straight into that grand final completely fresh. Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think literally every single guy in this tournament has the opportunity to win this.
The one thing I got to say, man, is I checked out the video on Bowen's channel when he had Lachlan there and he had Rickard there, and I got to see Rickard pulling Lachlan. Now, I don't know what the status of Lachlan was. You know, I don't know if he was pulling for a while, but I just was so impressed. I couldn't believe it. He was taking his wrist whenever he wanted, just rolling them out, just like being a wall, and you could see that Lachlan, he wanted to really give him something, and, he did some real hard hard hits, and he just bounced off them. And I'm just like, holy shit, bro! Like 20 years old, 1 year in, and he's doing that to Lachlan already. I mean, the level is just, we don't even know where that level is yet, so it's definitely going to be a mountain to climb for all these guys, man. I'm really looking forward to it. How's his endurance? Is Rickard got that crazy endurance?
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting about this is that we're going to throw all of these enormous guys at him and see, try to test him in every which way possible. So it's like, okay, we know you're incredibly strong. Yeah. We know that your technique has improved massively and dramatically, but we'll see if you're able to push it all the way through to the grand finals and get the victory again. Yeah, the crazy thing was that, and I was talking about this with Ryan last night, because we were referencing that training video, and Ryan said to Rickard, like, how much of, like, percentage-wise, how much energy were you using to just roll through me when I was giving it absolutely everything? And Rickard said, "Oh, well, to be honest, Ryan, it was 60%."
That is nuts.
But the endurance side of things is an interesting point, Paul, because on this occasion, so the last Grand Prix event that Rickard won, it was first to one, like, so you just won that and went on to the next round. This is first to two, so there is potential for Rickard to tire, and it just adds another dimension to this Grand Prix that we didn't have last time. And might answer that question as to what Rickard's endurance really is like.
That is next level, man. And he's got the rugby background, so I'm thinking that is going to be his forte, is the endurance. So,
yeah, he's like a natural athlete. He could be successful in any sport that he chooses, and that's why we're almost very lucky that he got an injury. I think it was his hamstring while he was over here in Australia to play rugby professionally. Got the injury and then sort of stumbled his way into the arm wrestling room at Ryan Bowen's club, and it was like, please stay, please don't go to any other sports, stay with arm wrestling.
For the sake of the sport, we need you.
We got a nice question from Magda. She's the owner of AWC, Global Elite Arm Wrestling, throws some amazing events in Canada. And she says, I know some of you guys have mixed emotions about Slap, but how do you really feel? Do you think it would gain popularity if there is a multi-event? Let's start off with you, Jody. What's your thoughts on the slap fighting and all, and kind of putting it together with the arm wrestling and, kind of cross promotions and all?
That could be a tricky situation. It could be dangerous, because the thing is, though, is that if you do that, that might be a good one-off event. But if you're trying to draw a crowd and they love all that, and then you do an arm wrestling event, you don't want people going, where's the slap fighting at? I think they kind of, those two sports stand on its own 2 feet. I personally, I might upset people here, but I'm not a real big fan of slap fighting. I can't understand a grown man allowing him to smack me in the face, and I can't do that. That's just me, though. But I think, and we as arm wrestlers and promoters and all that kind of stuff and athletes, we have to understand they done leapfrogged us as far as popularity, because everybody likes to see the car wreck, right? Everybody likes to see that kind of stuff. We got to figure out what can we do to market that stuff. And you know what? I think what we're doing is fine, because we've done this stuff in the past. Arm wrestling's been on Fox Sports in the past. It's been on ESPN in the past, but it ain't sustainable because there's a lot of money that goes into that, Maybe you need somebody like a Dana White to come in and go, hey, I like what you guys see. Let me go ahead and put my fingerprints on that and see where we go. But, the problem is that for all the Robert Drinks of the world, for all the Steve Kappas of the world, when it was going, it was great. Then all of a sudden they kind of left, and then now we're back to square one again. What's it going to take to get us back out there? You join with slap fighting or whatever, that might be good for one event, maybe a second, but I don't think personally it's sustainable. That's just my opinion.
Dave, what's your thoughts on that whole topic of combining slap fighting and arm wrestling at some of the events?
So I think as arm wrestling promoters, we're the custodian of one of the most ancient sports known to humanity. And on top of that, it's a sport that you wouldn't mind exposing your 3-year-old to. I don't think that's the case with slap. Slap's a it's a made-up sport. It's not a real sport. It's not something that men have been doing to each other for as long as men have existed. We weren't doing it in the caves for fun, as a sport. It's a form of violence that's been made into a sport, but doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't prove. It just proves who's the best at taking a hit, not who's necessarily the best at giving it. It's there's for all of those reasons. I wouldn't want to expose my toddler to that sport or my daughter to that sport. Or that's not the case. It's not a martial art. It doesn't. And I can't see that a sport that's predicated on slapping your opponent as something that engenders a lot of camaraderie in that sport. And that's one of the great things. So arm wrestling offers a community. It's an ancient sport. And further to that, you can expose people to it of all ages. And as long as the people on either side of the table are similarly skilled, they're going to have a really good time. And if they're not, then it's incumbent on the person that has the highest skill to ensure that the person that has the lowest skill level has a good time. And that's what builds community, when people lift each other up and help each other out and come together over something. And SLAP does not have that at any dimension. And I'm very, very surprised that commercial entities got behind that as a sport before they got behind arm wrestling. But I also believe if they have, it's only a matter of time for arm wrestling. So it bodes well for arm wrestling. It's not a bad thing that SLAP is more popular at the moment, because it's not sustainable and it won't be long term, because it's a sport that you can't encourage your kids to partake in.
I agree. Can I piggyback on that comment?
Yes.
Okay, and I don't want you three guys and everybody in the chat, I want you guys to understand what I'm saying. Feel free to comment on that. I'm going to piggyback on your comment because I love what you said. Now, another reason, can we cuss on the show?
Yes.
Oh, fuck. Here we go. So,
filters off.
God damn it. Another fucking reason why do we not have all this CTE going on? What's going to happen when you continue this stuff and someone gets their head rung? Because remember, slap fight is not just, it's none of that stuff. They winding back 2-1,000, 3-1,000, and then they're letting it fly on that third one, right? So at what point do people start getting CTE from that shit, right? Yeah. Like, come on, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off like that, but when you're making those points, it just triggered like, well, fuck. In football, they got these specialized helmets now. My favorite sport, we about one concussion away from having flag football in the NFL now. And now with the slap boxing stuff, with CTE going on, with all the brain damage, you want to do that sport? You for real?
Well, they've already had deaths. Somebody has already died. One of the guys in Europe got knocked out in the slap fighting competition, didn't wake up, went into a coma, went to hospital, his brain swelled, and he died. That's from a couple of years ago.
But what do you think if like one organization wanted to do it, just like, that was their thing? You know how you were saying, Jody, each organization's got their own thing. And we know, like, we got Marcus Thompson in here from Arm Gods and all, and they're a great example. And, and I'm thinking, like, at first my thought is, nah, I don't really think the combination. But then when I see Marcus in here and I'm like, yo, Arm Gods, that could be a possible platform where that might work. And, it could be some excitement. And it's kind of like cross networking. We got obviously so many views of the slap fighting and all. A platform like Arm Gods, it might bring in new eyes on our sport, and be like, guys that are really following the slap fighting. Now they go and they turn on and they're like, oh, look at this arm wrestling. I didn't realize that arm wrestling was really a thing like this and a real sport. And now we gain some fans like that. So what do you think if it's just like on, one organization that's, goes with that? What do you think on that, Matt?
I think slap fighting is the most ridiculous thing that has come about in the last few years. I think it's a fad. I think that within the next couple of years, it'll be done and dusted, and people have moved on to the next car crash, the next thing to point at and laugh. I think it's a complete embarrassment that Dana White got involved in it. I cannot believe that he did that. It's an insult to all of the times that he's talked about fighter safety in the UFC, and that they've never had a serious injury in the UFC, as in no deaths, no paralyzing or anything like that. And you've had thousands and thousands of matches, and you've got a referee that's looking out for the fighter. If you can't intelligently defend yourself, then they stop the fight. But then he goes and supports this thing where you are literally have zero defense and you are willingly allowing yourself to get hit as hard as possible in the face. And I'm flabbergasted that is a thing that he has gotten behind. I think that he's just purely seen the dollars in it and that he's gone, oh, this is a stupid thing that people like, that's easy for me to market. And I've got a whole bunch of money from when they sold the UFC. He got a $333 million check cut to him as a co-owner along with the Fertitta brothers, and he's seen slap and gone, let's do the same marketing formula that comes with slap fighting that is with the UFC. I'm going to make an absolute fortune, and then by the time it's done and dusted, I'll wrap up the league and move on to something else. But it's an embarrassment. It's a stupid thing. It's not a sport. It's a spectacle. I mean, who could name a single slap fighter? They've had all these events. Does anybody know any of the slap fighting competitors at all? Probably not, because no one cares about the athlete. They just care about seeing somebody get hurt. And I just think it's an absolute disgrace.
We got a question from Ryan Espy. He goes, how would a cross promotion work? The slap fighting guys are terrible at arm wrestling, and I assume the arm wrestlers would not want to get slapped. So how do you think they would actually, go against each other? Or is it more of like, we'd have like 5 super matches for arm wrestling and then like 1 or 2 slap fights at the end or whatever? I think that's kind of, the direction they were kind of talking about, possibly doing. And I think it's more of just to get more eyes on our sport, just because obviously the slap fighting has taken off like so much, and anything with any slap fighting match, when you look at the views on YouTube and all, you're just in awe. Like they're all like million views like instantly and all that. So I'm thinking that's more of what they meant by like a cross promotion. I could be wrong though.
The fans that are watching those slap fightings are not going to be fans of proper sports. They're there for the spectacle of somebody getting injured, and purely and simply. And I think that as soon as you put the arm wrestling on, they'll disappear.
There it is, right there.
And the thing that it does bother me is anytime that I mention that we're, arm wrestlers and I'm an arm wrestling promotion, the first thing everybody's been saying to me over the last years, oh, have you watched slap fighting? Is it like that? And it kind of, it gets me, it irks me a little, I kind of get a little pissed off. And then I think at the beginning when slap fighting first came out, I think they were doing it over arm wrestling tables. You know what I mean? So I think that's initially how it first came out. And,
talking about X arms?
No, not even X arms. I've seen the X arms too. That is extreme and just nuts. That's when they like, what do they strap each other on the arm wrestling table, and you're able to punch the other guy, and and then whoever gets the pinball. I didn't see that in the mainstream, but I think it was just when they first started doing the slap, that was the first table that it happened at. I don't know why or whatever, but it looked like an arm wrestling table. And then they changed it up pretty quickly after that, but it kind of made people think that it was something to do with arm wrestling and they were connected in some sort of way. And it's just like so frustrating because we've been at this, it's like 40-50 years we're going at, trying to promote arm wrestling. These guys come in within the last like 2 years, and I mean it's like the new trend everywhere. Everybody's going crazy and talking about it, and I think it's more of just the views. People went up there and started slapping each other and realizing, oh my god, 1 million people care about watching somebody else get their ass slapped off or whatever. So
but I tell you what, Paul, right now slap fighting might be the flavor of the month, but I don't think down the road it's going to be sustainable. At some point it'll fizzle out, because I swear to God, I don't want this to happen. I'm gonna knock on wood, but I'm telling you, something bad's gonna. I mean, Matt already said somebody's died. I'm telling you, what's it gonna take for it to go, okay, maybe we should chill out with that. And when it finally phases out, arm wrestling will still be sitting here,
But I think you really think it's going to phase out when you got Dana White, pumping out there with all the money he's got. I think what it would take was people just to be like, oh, I'm not interested in watching it anymore. And to be honest, I mean, even like watching with the ladies match, so many people tune into that and they get excited to watch it. You know what I mean? So I don't know, how long do you guys think it's going to last? Like, what do you think?
Slap less of less like a sport and more like a TV show. And like you get to the end of Big Brother, and then it's over and it's done with. And there might be another season, but Yeah, all of these reality TV shows, they're the biggest thing ever, and then all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're not on telly for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden, they might reemerge on a different network, and away they go again. It might have that type of cycle. I don't see it as sustaining itself, because in itself, it doesn't have a fan base. It just has voyeuristic. It just has voyeuristic potential. People just watch it when it's in front of them. I don't know if people are making a huge effort to go and see it if it's not just right there and on their popping up on their feed.
I don't know, man. I think it
started
started
to have clubs. It doesn't have an infrastructure. It doesn't have associations. It doesn't have multiple platforms. I think it's just a house of cards. And as you said, all of that money that Dana White's throwing at it to make it what it is, no one else is doing that. Once that's gone, I think the whole thing folds away.
What I see though, man, is they're like some of the characters are starting to stand out. And I know in Magda's last event in Canada, I think she had one of them come on, and I think didn't they pull Alex Kadecha in that match? He was like one of the slap champions or whatever. I think they're starting to build like fans with it, because there's definitely some characters that definitely stick out. I think a couple of the arm wrestlers in our community are dabbling with it. I think there's one or two of them in California. I think that guy Grizzly, he's like 400 pounds or whatever. He's got the big beard. I think he's one of those slap fighters and all that. But I think it is kind of taking off, and they're starting to get a little fan club going and all. I'm interested to hear what Magda thinks about that, because I know, she had that guy that was a slap fighter going against Alex Kadecha, and she just said, but there is arm wrestling and there is entertainment arm wrestling. So I think Magda might be interested in something like that. So do you have anything planned, Magda, coming up? Or
Yeah, well,
Matt, what were you going to say, brother?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think that it's a good analogy that Dave said, that looking at it like a TV show, and it just reminds me of all those reality TV shows that when they first came out, they exploded in popularity. I mean, you look at Big Brother, Jersey Shore with like Snooki and The Situation and all those guys. I mean, where are they? Where are they today? I mean, how long did that period last?
Bro, they just did another show, bro. They're back. They've been back
2.0.
2 years. Yeah,
They're going to go away for a little while and then they come back.
They ran out of money from the first show, and now they're back. And
on Netflix, everybody gets
that generation are still watching them and supporting them.
Everyone deserves
Situations like got a fat gut now, like no. But my point is like, but they did dip massively from their initial explosion of popularity, and it ran its course, and then naturally people wanted to find the next new thing. So reality TV, for network producers, for TV stations, it was cheap, it was easy, it was grab a whole bunch of crazy people, put a camera on them and go and tell them to do stuff. And that's what they did. And then they wrapped shows around that, and it was very loosely scripted. You have an argument with you and we'll film it. Okay, where you go. And you're still seeing that with like the Real Housewives and all the rest of it. It has its sort of niche area, and I think it'll still always be there. But in terms of it being on the upwards trend, I think it sort of hit its plateau and it's dipped and it's come back down to where it will stay. I think slap fighting is on its trajectory upwards at the moment, but I think that it won't take long before we start seeing a few deaths, a few major injuries, people who've been knocked out maybe 2 years ago that are dying, that all these athletes are coming forward with these serious problems, and that's going to have a massive negative effect on it.
He's going to get sued because he's not taking the same precautions with those athletes as he is with the UFC athletes, because there's no regulation around it yet. And so he's going to get sued. And we've seen this in football here in Australia. I'm sure it's the same with NFL in the US, but it's going to be a massive issue. How many college footballers, end up being 35 years old and brain damaged and are now making claims against their old college or against the league? So this is going to be a massive issue down the road. But I also say that, there was that I saw Magda's comment about, but you've got arm wrestling and then you've got arm wrestling entertainment. Why don't we make arm wrestling entertainment entertaining to watch? Yesterday I sat through Knuckles Up and King of the Table as a live event. They're not very they're not nice events to watch. And especially if you're a layperson, you're not an arm wrestling fan, these are not slickly produced events. They are not easy to consume events. One of the great things about Slap is that it's readily consumable. You get the whole story in 30 to 90 seconds. Everything's there and in front of you. I mean, it takes it's 4 minutes of mucking around trying to get a grip up. You know, it's not entertaining. It's not great fun for lay people. People aren't going to get into that unless they're real arm wrestling fans. So making formats of arm wrestling that are highly watchable, readily consumable, and that appear on people's feeds who aren't interested in arm wrestling is really the key to making arm wrestling entertaining, not injecting another sport into it. I don't think is
So
my
how do
solution.
we achieve that, Dave? Like, how could we make it more interesting for, you know, the non-arm wrestler so that we could grab their attention? Like, is it telling the story? You know, like you said, in 60 to 90 seconds, you kind of get the whole story in their background. Is that what is key? Or, you know, do we have to, like, you know, change our rules a little so that we're getting, you know, quicker setups and not, you know, jostling around at the center of the table for a couple minutes and all? What is the key to that? Because everybody's been trying to figure that out for like 40 years now, and we seem not they got it yet. The formula is not there.
Well, the history of football is really interesting. So, so all of the forms of football that we see in the Western world, gridiron, Australian rules football, soccer, association football, that it all started off the same. So you know the term home ground advantage. You would have heard that at some stage. You get home. Well, the reason why you had a home ground advantage is because when you're the home team, you decided what rules you were playing that day. And so in some cases, that team liked to pass the ball backwards. Well, they were rugby teams. They morphed into rugby teams. Some would only kick the ball. They wouldn't allow you to lose your hands. They morphed into the soccer teams. And then as the sport 150, 180 years ago found its way over to America, it had already taken more of where the football was originally played was the Ivy League schools. And so rugby, which was very much a public school sport in the UK, became the basis of what gridiron is. So, and in Australia, we just had large open spaces and we had cricket grounds. And so our football is played on a cricket ground, and we play by different rules again that's more closely aligned with the Celtic rules of football. So 170 years ago, football was in exactly what you know of as football was very much in the same spot as where arm wrestling is today. So it can, and there's a great deal of flexibility. We can apply different rule sets. We can have different formats that run over different. You can have an 8-hour pay-per-view with 18 matches if you want, but I don't know if that's really going to garner a whole lot of attention from anybody other than the hardest core arm wrestling fans ever. Certainly, they're not going to be watching the first 14 matches probably with the same level of attention as the last few matches. So we can change the format of the sport to make it more watchable. There's a great deal of flexibility, but in some respects, we've been a little locked into whatever it was that somebody decided 40 years ago. And I think that's our challenge right now, is that the traditionalists want to see the sport very much locked into that. And there hasn't been anybody really evolve it out of there and make it commercially viable. So that's the challenge, I think, for new promotions. I think, you know, Arm Gods present the sport in the way that they do. We've got Knuckles Up doing what they do. We've got King of the Table, East West. With a lot of it's pretty much the same thing that you're watching. You know, it's super match format that takes hours to get through. So I think the winner in the arm wrestling, the league or the promotion or the production that ends up winning here is going to be the one that makes it highly watchable over a shorter period of time, that then can be chopped up into social media content that brings in an audience from aligned sports. And the aligned sports for us are combat sports, strength sports, and maybe then football, our respective football codes. I think that's where we get it from. And it's from the demographic 18 to 55, 98% male. That's the demographic. So we know who our audience is. We've just got to get better at getting to that audience.
We got a super chat from Greg Brown TV for $5. He says, Cornhole League ESPN is so big now. Full ride scholarships to college if you're good at cornhole. We need to figure something out. Thank you for that comment, Greg. I definitely agree. Jody, what can we do, bro? Because he's making some really great points here. And how do we make it more mainstream that other than just the diehard arm wrestler fans are going to watch it? Because just like he said, it's a good point. Like with the East versus West, these are the best matches that are being set on the big stage. But having 18 super matches, I'm a purist. I love arm wrestling and all, and it's tough for me to get through that whole thing. It's like you just start losing your attention, and you're just like, all right, you're picking a couple matches where you're gonna go take your break and all that. So if even us arm wrestlers are having problems going through that, how do we make this mainstream and we get all these other people that are just fans into it?
Do you know how? Well, we all remember Game of Arms, right? What made that so successful? There was a storyline. Kenny Hughes, he's a drinker, he's trying to get better so he can pull now. Michael Cilieres, well, guess what? He's a science teacher in real life. Story behind that. Don Underwood had his kids, him and his wife separated, and then he's trying to get custody, that kind of stuff. When you have a storyline, Cobra Rhodes, he's a chef, and he's trying to get back into the sport at the time. There's a storyline for all that. Like when you have a storyline, it grabs people. When it's just arm wrestling to be arm wrestling, like you said, Paul, I'm a purist too. I'll watch it because I'm a fan of the sport. It didn't take me long to get attached to it. I didn't need all the bells and whistles for me to get attached to that sport. But if we're trying to take this thing mainstream, you got to have, yes, exactly. Rest in peace, Kenny. But you got to have a storyline. You got to have the audience go, if I'm just a Joe Smo, right, and I'm watching AWE, give me a reason why I should be watching that show. Give me a reason. Hey, this guy, on his deathbed, now he's back, to reclaim his top of the mountain. I want to see how this guy does now because, hell, he was jacked up, and now he's coming back, which meant his whole journey was like this. I got to get back to where I was after my accident. That's what grabs people. You know what I mean? You got to have if you don't have a storyline, then what are we doing here, right? So, that's why Game of Arms worked, whether it be Chop Burchard in Louisiana, storyline. Because the good thing about arm wrestling, not everybody's built the same. You could be chubby. You could be a rail, about as skinny as a pencil. You could be the strongest. You could be the lightest. Everything has a story. And if you have that story, that's what grabs people. But if it's just arm wrestling to be arm wrestling, then you're not going to go mainstream. However, you will still have those purists like you guys and myself and some of the people in the chat. You're always going to have those. But if you're trying to reach,
but let me ask you this, Jody, because this is the only problem I see with that. With Game of Arms, it was mostly entertainment matches, and the way it was filmed and all that. I think that's the key because they weren't going through that crazy setups and taking so long. I think the matches were kind of discussed beforehand and all. So, is it real arm wrestling then, or is it more of an entertainment that we're trying to sell?
You can have a storyline and still have real arm wrestling. You can still do that. Now, they scripted their stuff. They probably had a pull or whatever. And, hey, if it was one-sided, they could be like, hey, you know what? Won't you lay on a couple matches and you can win 3, you can win 2, just make it, good for the camera. Yeah, I get all that. But the storyline, if you got a guy who was on his deathbed, he came back, that's the guy you're rooting for. I'm pulling for him. If he gets smacked 3-0, it's like, oh, man, I want him to win so bad. Who's he pulling next? You attach to that. You don't want to make it so fake because then you start blurring the lines between WWE and arm wrestling. We are not WWE. And I wish some people out there would stop trying to we need to be like them. No, we don't need to be like them. We are.
What I'm saying as far as the setup, remind me because I don't remember with Game of Arms. I don't remember the actual matches like that. But was there the jostling in the setup where it was taking 3-4 minutes to actually get them to say go, or did they kind of edit it out, or they weren't playing those games? Because I really don't remember.
They weren't really jostling, but if they did, they would edit it out.
Okay, so that's what, because the one time I do remember was when Travis went against Tom Nelson, and they
Mhm.
had that whole beef, and they started fighting from that whole situation and all. And
But that was entertaining, though, was it not?
yeah, no, 100%.
There you
But
go.
that's kind of going the wrestling style, in that way. How that
But
all went
On
down.
reality TV style, that's really.
But if you watch the match, though, what happened? Travis won 3-0. It wasn't like, hey, let Tom win a couple. It was like, no, Travis was like, fuck you. I'm winning this thing. Because you got to remember, especially when you got to be careful, because when you have money up for grabs, who the fuck is acting? Fuck you. I'm trying to win that money. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's ways of doing it. And I think you can start with Game of Arms and kind of, even the Canadian version, Arm Nation, same thing. They had a storyline, right? It was, whether it be Evan Burgoyne, Vern Martell, you had a storyline.
But so how do you make that as like a regular event now? Like, say like Knuckles Up. How would you go about reproducing that Game of Arms in your, everyday pay-per-view event? That's where it kind of gets tricky. Like you kind of got to adapt
Well,
that style.
it's got to lead. You've got to have an interest. I think you'd like that. I mean, Matt's got some pretty strong feelings on this particular subject, I think, because he's been talking about this since the day I met him, actually. But it's creating personalities, and so now people are still interested in Travis. They're interested in Evan. It's like Conor McGregor. People are interested in Conor McGregor now because of the TV show. Well, because of everything else, but it all started there. And you need these. And one of the fundamental problems that we have in our sport at the moment is the lack of money. That's the big issue, because what would be really handy is if you had somebody doing all of these things, where there was an organization, and this is where sporting organizations have the benefit, where you can create multiple formats of the same sport, and you can expose it in different ways because you own the rights to the sport, and you can you give creative opportunity to short form content makers as well. And I would say the closest and the best that's doing it right now is Pro Punja, without a doubt. They're doing everything that we're talking about right now. They're doing, and they're getting 30 million people watching. 30 million TV sets. Estimated 100 million people watching an arm wrestling final. These aren't the best in the world, but it's presented beautifully, and the stories are told throughout the event. But yeah, Matt's been talking about this forever.
Go ahead, Matt. What you got?
Yeah, we're waiting to hear from you, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a combination of two things. One is the storyline element, and the other is the consumption of the product element. And so if you've got a fantastic storyline and you're very invested in these two characters, and then you get to see them actually compete, but then the competition is dead boring, you've got no product. But when you combine the two together and you've got a fantastic product where it's highly consumable, highly watchable for anybody that has never had to know what arm wrestling is before, and you can show anyone on the street and just go, have a look at this. What do you think of this? And it's a very entertaining thing to watch. And maybe it's 1 minute long, maybe it's a minute and a half, but it's an absolute war between two guys. That becomes the consumable. And then when you add in the story element on top of that, it doubles that factor. And so you get the opportunity to create superstars, and you get personalities, and you get people like Travis Fagan, people like Devin Larratt, with these personalities, this charisma that come through, and people become fans of theirs, and they want to see them compete. But when they see them compete, they want to see like a very highly consumable, entertaining product. And I think that at this point in time, you're getting one half of the element where you get, say, Devin Larratt competing against Leonidas, what we saw on King of the Table on the weekend. And it's like, the fans of Devin Larratt, we want to see Devin compete. But then you watch that and it's like, this is kind of not that great to watch. Like, it's a little boring. But if you had, I think what they would do, they would be smarter to do with that element, is to, rather than having those long drawn out 7-8 hour pay-per-views where you've got all the setups and all the messing around and the waiting in the corners and if you post-produce, which is what we're going to be doing with the AWE Grand Prix 2, we're going to eliminate all of those boring moments. We're only going to present you the best of the best moments that are highly entertaining, highly watchable, and we're going to build the storyline of the characters there as well. So you know who it is that's going into the event. You're excited to see them compete, and then when you see them compete, it's exciting and entertaining, and that's the formula that has to be there for it to be effective.
Yeah, I think for any sport that's not like a high profile, like name brand sport, like baseball or gridiron or basketball, all the like second and third tier sports, and we might be on the fifth tier, by the way, but those sports benefit from being better packaged and to get a larger audience always. And back in the 1980s in Australia, we would have it. On a Saturday there'd be a 6-hour long sports program called Nine's Wide World of Sports. I don't know if you guys had something similar in America, but it was a sports program, but they were all different sports. So you'd have wakeboarding, then it would be Ironman, then it would be maybe arm wrestling. That's where we saw, that was our exposure to strongman in Australia, was on there as well. So you'd have all these fringe sports that were covered. And so what you got then was sports fans who might have been tuning in for something else, or who were just generally interested in sports, kind of catching up on all of the sports all at once. Arm wrestling would really benefit from that type of exposure at the moment as well. But a TV network isn't going to put on an 8-hour arm wrestling show, but it might put on a really nicely packaged 15-minute expose / feature of arm wrestling matches. And that's one way we've got to think. And of course, we don't necessarily need to be on TV. We've got social media now, but I think the same principles apply. So we do better when we package better the sport. That's my feeling.
I want to bring up, because you guys talked about King of Table, and we just had that this past weekend and all. I don't want to get right into the matches and all. I just want to get your thoughts on the production and the show that they put on. I know there was a lot of talk on Reddit, and a lot of people were pretty angry at some of the production and all. So what was your guys' overall thoughts of that whole event? Let's start off with you, Dave.
I can't believe it's. I mean, they've had a few cracks at this, and that. So this is meant to be run by a professional company that does video production, and I can't believe some of the amateurish mistakes. I can't believe the setting. Can't believe the lighting. I can't believe the placement of the hosts, or seemingly wherever they want, or wherever the lighting was worst. Can't believe that there was athletes waiting to be announced behind the announcer on the way out the door. Can't believe they had a cameraman with the wrong piece of equipment in his hands, hanging over the shoulders of the athlete the whole time, basically obscuring 3 other camera angle shots or 4 other camera angle shots, almost all the time. So rendering, they could have saved themselves a lot of money on cameramen that day. And it doesn't look to me that they're learning any lessons or actually making any greater investment in the skill set of the people, the technicians, the people that have got behind the cameras. They don't seem to have any people that really understand the sport very well. So, I mean, my thought was great first attempt if it was the first time that they were doing something and they were trialing a new team. But I really can't believe that this is meant to be the pinnacle of our sport, and maybe one of the reasons why the sport's experiencing limitations to its growth at the moment. I just didn't think it was a world-class production that was representative of the world-class athletes that were on display. So controversial maybe, but that's I sat here with somebody who has many years experience yesterday, and we sat and watched through large parts of that, and as a live show, it was even worse. I mean, you might be able to package some of that up and make it look okay, but as a live show, it was not very consumable. So, yeah. So they're my thoughts on it.
Jody, what's your thoughts on the whole event and all?
I only saw maybe a couple rounds of a couple matches because I was competing Saturday too. But my question is more in the front half, like, why are they not promoting the way they should? And I'll give you an example because everyone's different. And we'll just take East versus West, for example. normally when you have a matchup, and you're going to have those two guys who are meeting up, or two ladies who are meeting up on this podcast, and they'll have them on at the same time. So they can talk about, hey, what's going on? Why do you think you'll win? What are your training athletes? That kind of stuff. And for some reason, King of Table just doesn't promote until like maybe the week and a half before the event. They'll put the flyer out there. You got more people who watch the order pay-per-view will do more promoting than they do. And I'm just kind of, I'm trying to figure out why y'all don't promote, because I'm going to be real super honest. On the show last week, Paul, when you joined me and Ryan Espy, I actually forgot that King of the Table was that Saturday because they don't promote it. Now, granted, I was in my own brain because I was focusing on my match and my tournament I was going to, but it was like I fucking forgot about it because they're not promoting it. That's what my issue is. How come you don't promote like you should do with that kind of talent?
Matt, what was your thoughts on everything?
I agree. I completely forgot about the event as well. I had no idea that it even happened until we were at training on Sunday night, and somebody just happened to mention, "Oh, did you see that?" And I was like, "Oh, has that happened?" I knew it was coming up, but I didn't know when it was. They're like, "Yeah, it's already on." I'm like, "Okay, don't tell me the result. I'll have to order it." So I actually watched it probably 8 hours ago, and I was surprised at the price. The price was high. It was $20 US plus a $2 processing fee or something. So it came out to like $35 Australian, which is, a decently high price for a pay-per-view event. And then, I was spending most of the time just skipping through because there was so much downtime. There was so much just dead air. And one of my major frustrations was that the guys, every time that they would either slip or foul, they would both wander off to the corner and sit down, get a rub down, get a massage. And it was like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be at the table. You're on pay-per-view. People are paying to see this. And you're supposed to be, it's not an in-between rounds rest. One of the things I actually took some notes on this, because with the Camille and Morozov match, round 2 took 14 minutes for one round. And
hey man,
and
who the fuck gets a rub down after a slip?
Exactly right. I think that there was some issues with the production, that the audio was really low, could barely hear it.
It would rise up
the
and
background
down.
The background was for the preliminary matches was white, and a lot of the competitors were wearing white shirts, so that you could barely see them. You could only see a floating arm kind of thing. And there was so many liberties taken with the athletes deciding over referees' calls as to what they were going to do. I mean, the referees had made a decision that, like, okay, you've got the pin, and the athletes like, no, we'll just do it again. We'll run it back. It's fine. And it's like, the referee is the guy who's running the match. Like, you guys don't run the match. You're the competitor. You listen to what the referee says. And honestly, it was. I sort of regretted paying for it, to be honest. It was a long, drawn out sort of yawn fest, and I was talking about this with Ryan because he got in from Australia last night, and he was there when I was watching it. And I said, I haven't seen the results. Don't tell me anything. He goes, oh, no. He goes, yeah, but this match you might want to skip. But he was doing a live commentary during the event, and he had people watching his channel. I think he had 900 people watching. And Ryan Bowen, hardcore arm wrestling fan, fell asleep during the production. That's how annoying it was.
The problem I had, I was watching it live, and we didn't know what was going on. The scoreboard wasn't keeping up. It wasn't telling us the real score. They were making mistakes, and then the commentary was confused. They didn't know what the actual score was, what was a foul. The referees weren't, saying it loud enough so that the commentary actually knew. So I mean, we really didn't even know the score on a lot of these matches as it was going on. And I'm like, I just didn't understand something so simple. We couldn't get right, and completely with the production, they fell with that. Yeah, what are you about to say, Jody?
I've been waiting for this call today. I gotta take this, so I may have to dip off. But guys, thank you for having me on the show. Everybody in the chat, keep going strong. We'll talk to y'all soon. I gotta take this.
Say hi to England for us.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just very disappointed with that whole thing. I was so confused the whole time. I think, just like you said, with the Artem Morozov and Camille and all, half of the time they had the wrong score on the board. commentary was they actually, Coach Ray had to yell over the referees to find out what was a foul, what was a running foul. It was just really, a debacle. And, this is supposed to be one of the top stages. And just say we had a couple of non-arm wrestlers watching that. I mean, it was hard for us arm wrestlers to watch, and 14 minutes for one setup. I mean, you're going to lose everybody on that. I mean, just like you said, man, I kind of shut it down, and, I was like, I'm just going to come back and watch the replay where I could zip through it. And that's kind of like what I did, because I was just getting so annoyed not knowing what was going on, and it was taking so long. And it just came off as pretty unprofessional. And I was surprised because, King of Table usually, they do decent, they usually put out a good production and you kind of know what's going on. But this one I just felt was like really, really off. And then the other thing that a lot of people were saying was they didn't like the matches. They didn't like the picks of the matches they did before. And, there was a lot of disappointment with that. And there was not too many close matches going on. There was a couple of good ones on that, like that Artem versus Camille, when you zip through it and you didn't watch the whole, hour-long match and all, but you zip through it. It did get kind of interesting how it was going back and forth, and you thought that Camille was going to, have a shot and all that. But I think we really need to make a much better product and put that out there to get those non-arm wrestlers and everything that we were talking about earlier, trying to get in the mainstream. That is the worst, I think, example you want to put out there.
If you're a sports fan, and let's just picture for a moment, you're watching your favorite sport on TV, or if that's a football or basketball or baseball, is there any circumstance ever where you're going to see the anchor, the lead commentator, standing there in cargo shorts and a t-shirt and a pair of thongs? Now, I like Coach Ray, but if we're talking about professionalism in the sport, to me, the whole thing looked like an afterthought and wasn't. It didn't seem to be cohesive, well thought out, very well executed. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, but this is the company that's presenting our sport to the world at the very, very highest level. So, this is the degree of attention that they're paying to the sport. So, I don't know if they've got a lot of projects on the go. Not sure what's going on there. Maybe they've got bigger fish that they're frying at the moment, but that was reeked of an afterthought that was poorly thought out and very badly executed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And
Jake did his absolute best to make it a show, by the way.
Yeah. We got to make some changes with that. And, I hope they seen the feedback and all. I think Don might have said something, he was apologizing after and, said they were going to make things right. I don't know if they actually did do anything. He said something. I saw in one of the comments that he was going to make everything right the next day for the bad production and all. So I don't know if they give any refunds or anything like that, or if they're in talks with something like that. But I know a lot of the people were very angry paying that $19.99 and, getting what they got. And I think even halfway during the show, like I said, I stopped watching and I went back and when replayed and just zipped through it. But I heard they had during the halftime, there was a real problem and the actual production went down for a while and they had to hold off on a couple of the matches and all. And I was just seeing some crazy, crazy stuff on Reddit and, everybody seemed to be angry and all that. So I hope they make some changes and we could put out a better product out there, because we're never going to get non-arm wrestlers into this sport if we put it, and we're not going to be taken seriously. And I didn't even realize what Dave said with the with Coach Ray being in the shorts and not having that professional look. I mean, somebody tunes into that, they're just going to dismiss us as a real sport and taken as professional. So yeah, we definitely got to step that up for sure.
I don't think the commentators had a screen in front of them either, so they weren't able to, and they couldn't have had communications going back either. They just couldn't have.
That suit that Jake is wearing at the shows was actually bought for him by Dave Stockbridge, because he wanted Jake to look very professional when he worked with us with AWE.
Oh, very nice.
I don't know if that
Drew24,
is.
he has a
Actually.
good
I think he might
comment.
have bought a new one because I think he lost that one on the plane.
Didn't he lost?
Yeah, I think he lost one. So I think he called to say, "I've lost that one. I'm going to have to get another one now." So
How do you lose a suit?
well, I think he lost his whole bag. Or he left it or something like that. But yeah.
Well,
Drew24 has
point
a
is
good
that
comment. He says 50% refund credit would be fair in my opinion. I agree with that, Drew, and I hope maybe they do something. You know, I know there was some talks, and I think it was told Paul that I seen him in a couple of the posts and all that, and he was saying that something might be being announced. All that. I hope it does for sure.
it'd be
So
nice. Yeah, I was very frustrated actually because I mean, with the conversion rate, you know, 19.99 US, then this $2 processing fee. It's online. It's the internet. It's like, what's this processing from? And then so that boosted it up to almost $40, like for me. And then for the event, like probably the second match in, I'm like, I'm falling asleep here, and it's still only just started the thing, and so yeah, very frustrating.
we got an amazing super chat from Marcus Thompson. He says, "Good show, boys. The podcast you all do help put the spotlight on the sport. Giving up your time and effort is appreciated by the community. Every bit helps, boys. Also, Matt, I hope you packed your Indian lunchbox. No deli belly." Thank you so much, Marcus. Really appreciate that, man. Very kind of you, brother. And Marcus, I'm really interested to see, man, what's next. I know you got the electric shock match and all that everybody's been talking about, but I see you guys interested in that slap fighting and all. Is that something that you're looking to incorporate into Arm Gods next, or what other shock tactics do you got going on and up your sleeve? Really want to hear about that.
I love the weekly shows. The weekly shows that are there on Arm Gods now. So if you're a subscriber, you get to see arm wrestling every week, super matches every week on Arm Gods.
Oh, I saw that post. That looks amazing. Yeah, Paul Maiden made a video about that, and that's going to be great. Yeah, I'm a member over with the Arm Guides, and I suggest everybody else definitely become a member, and you can definitely check out weekly arm wrestling. I think that's going to be great for the sport as well. So, guys,
absolutely, yeah.
What do you think we need to do to really step up the production and all that? Do we need to get Core Sports, obviously, they kind of slipped on this last one with King of Table, but do we need to get more production companies involved in arm wrestling? Do we need to find arm wrestlers that are in production? Like, what is the key for that? Because it is very expensive to go outside to these companies and kind of hire them and try still keeping in budget in these arm wrestling events. So like, what is the answer as far as production and all?
Ooh, well, you go, Matt. Matt's got lots of ideas.
Well, I think that we're seeing a lot of people trying different things, and a lot of different organizations that are springing up that love arm wrestling, and they're like, hey, we have an idea, we have a different rule set, we have a different format, we have a different sort of table, we've got different foul rules. And I think there's a lot of experimentation as to finding the best way to present arm wrestling, and we haven't quite hit it yet. But for me, I think that the pay-per-view model is dead. I don't think that that's the way forwards. I think that the fact that you've got so much time with setups in arm wrestling that just kills its ability to grow into a mainstream consumable product. I think post-produced is definitely the way forwards, where you can eliminate all of that and you can highlight all of the interesting aspects and only present that to the viewer. So that's what we're looking to do with the AWE, especially with this Grand Prix 2 event. So we've sort of changed from looking at just pure super matches, which is what everyone's doing, and we've gone, well, why don't we just get the 8 best guys we can find in our region, put them in a tournament structure. It takes about an hour to watch. It's highly consumable. It's match after match after match. You're starting with your 8 guys. It's double elimination. So you're getting that storyline being told very quickly through that 1 hour period. And you're seeing 30 matches or something take place because of the double elimination. It's action packed. It's quick. And you've got interesting characters and great commentary, great productions. It all comes together. I think those short, sharp, and shiny is the way forwards, as opposed to let's put 17 matches on and have it go for 9 hours. I don't think that's the way it's going to work.
What is the sweet spot as far as time limit? Where do we want to keep it in the time? Is it like
Well,
2-hour production, 4-hour? Like where should we be in the sweet spot?
look at all the major sports. I think 2 hours is a real sweet spot. Within 2 hours, people have an attention span for a longer event over that. But for the point of, well, for the purposes of social media, of course, you've got to have a. So the answer to your question is twofold. It's money and it's format. So what's going on at the moment? Not a lot of money in the sport and a lot of experimentation on the format. This is healthy. This is actually good because you've got people making mistakes, experimenting, throwing money at certain things to see what sticks and see what works. And so everybody else can then look at that promotion and say, "Oh, I like that table. That's a great thing. Well, we'll get something engineered like that because that's kind of cool. We can see the benefit of that. Oh, we like that format, or we like that setup. It's not taking 14 minutes to get a grip. Okay, well, let's take that. And oh, we like that production style and those production values. Ooh, okay, so what's going to happen is over a period of time through this experimentation because of a lack of funds, because also in terms of promotions, there's a huge diversity all over the place. Everybody's doing their own thing. This is great because what's going to happen is that over a period of time, things will coalesce. And unlike, say, when Vince McMahon took over wrestling had already coalesced at that stage. The format of it had coalesced. There was a card, and then you had your big match at the end, and then, that's how it all went. We're in that stage now. We're not quite ready for that. So consolidation can't actually happen until you've got your format addressed. So once the sport has worked out what's a consumable product, then it's just going to take money. So it's format and money. It's making a consumable product and then throwing fuel on that fire so that it blows up. Now, how that happens, don't know. And I guess that's part of the fun of trying and seeing what sticks.
Well, I got to ask you guys this. This is where my problem is how much money should we expect and
$5 million.
invest into the production of, of an arm wrestling event? Because, I mean, you could get really, really expensive where you'll never see those returns unless you get in major sponsors and all that. So, like, what is like a good, starting production price that we should be looking to pay on one single event?
Well, Pro Punja would probably spend the most. I mean, I don't know if it's literally the most because it's in rupee, but they would spend the most per event than anybody else, and you can see how good that sport looks. How good the sport looks when it's presented by Pro Punja, and you can see the effect is 30 million TV sets tuning in, 100 million people watching. If you present the sport beautifully, it's going to attract more eyeballs. So they've hit upon a formula that works really well in their marketplace. They do a lot of they shoot it like a TV show, so they shoot it like a season, so they know the storylines by the time that they're releasing their product. They're creating stars, they're creating celebrities out of their athletes. So now you've got millions of people vested in the future of Mazahir Saidu who want to see whether or not he can hold on to the title, or whether or not one of the pretenders can make it happen. One of the contenders can make it happen this time. So a lot of these questions are actually answered in what's going on in India. They've nutted out a formula that's very successful. They're on mainstream TV. They're on Sony TV. It's as big as it gets over there. That's like the ESPN in India. They have the best production values in the world, without doubt. They've got compelling in-person attendance. Like the people in the room are fans. They're eager to be there. They're having a good time. There's great atmospherics in the room. Best of any promotion anywhere. Unlike, say, King of the Table, where there might have been I don't know. Did it look like there was more than 20 people in that room?
No.
I don't know. Knuckles up. Love those guys. I thought they should have stopped filming back at the entrance of the athletes walking into an empty room. And I understand they actually sold all the tickets from there, but people were supporting the event from overseas and didn't necessarily turn up in person. But they should have just not done that shot. But the reality is they're doing everything right. They're just not doing it right in the West. So we can look to them and see a great example. You pour the equivalent of $5 million onto the sport and have a well-produced product, there's success to be had at the end of that rainbow.
We got a super chat from White Wolf. He says, I agree with Marcus. Been giving you guys shit all night, but you're trying and slugging away. You have to get away from top pullers and pay-per-view. Only arm wrestlers and fans interested. 1,000,000,000% get testing. No big sponsors. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And the only problem I see with that comment is if you don't have these big names, you're not getting, the pay-per-view buys or the views needed. And, it almost seems like if Devin's not on a card, not many people are tuning in. That's the other problem I'm seeing. So how do we get around that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's building stories behind the athletes, and that takes time. That's not an easy fix, I don't think.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, it's so how do you, I mean, like, how does a production company go about that? Now do they have to make their own podcast? Do they need to start building the brand of their athletes? Like, how do you go about that? Like even like say we got the East versus West coming up. We got Todd Zilla and he's going against that. I think it's he used to be a famous Korean arm wrestler and all. And I think they should be promoting that guy more and giving his storyline before this big match, because only people that know him are like the old OG arm wrestlers and all. And he's supposed to be like some big time arm wrestler making the comeback, but nobody's really talking about it. Nobody's giving his backstory, and I think it's just something that they're failing at. They got to really market these new people, and really get their names out there so that we don't just have to have a Devin on every card and just start having Devin pull matches like Leonidas, which, before that, everybody was just saying this match just doesn't make sense in any kind of way. And there was no interest. And then, what was your thoughts on that particular match, with Devin going against Leonidas? Matt, were you happy with that match? Was that something that you think that was an asset for arm wrestling?
It was a squash match, and everyone knew it was going to be a squash match. Leonidas is still new to arm wrestling, and even though he's had a couple of good performances, against John Singh, that they were doing this left arm, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, Leonidas has a built-in audience, and you think, okay, throwing him against the number one most recognizable guy in arm wrestling of Devin Larratt, this should do well, but fans of the sport who know both guys knew this was not going to be competitive. And there's that element there where Devin really is starting to come off looking like a bully. And especially the way that he acted throughout the match, just talking trash to Leonidas in German. I mean, it was funny, but it was like he did it the entire way through, and it just became, I probably the third round, but he kept doing it, and I was just like, and this looks really like nasty. It looks like a really mean thing that you're doing to this guy who's giving it everything. Credit to Leonidas for not fighting back and not even looking Devin's way and not acknowledging what he was doing and still continuing to try. But to have somebody who's the number one place of arm wrestling, and he's coming off as like a standover, like, I'm so great, you guys suck, da, 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 da. And it's like, yeah, but you're going against somebody who you shouldn't even. You knew this wasn't going to be a competitive match. I mean,
do you think your king of the table is even trying to be? Are they deliberately trying to be the crossover platform where if somebody from outside of the sport has a profile and they're doing okay, they get to king of the table, and then that's the springboard to get into East versus West? So is king of the table now a feeder for influencers or people that aren't necessarily arm wrestlers to make their way into the big league, so to speak? Is that what they're trying to do? Because it didn't seem like it was a good match that they were trying to set up, but it was just a way of keeping both men busy and interested, and it just seemed to be very, almost manufactured.
I saw the comment. There was a comment that just popped up a second ago from Luke, who just said, "What are you trying to do to tell Devin how to talk and how to act?" I'm not doing that at all. Devin can do whatever he likes, and a lot of people find him very entertaining. For me, it came off as not the best look for arm wrestling, as you've got the number one guy in the world who's obviously leagues ahead of his opponent, and a lot of the fun and the attraction of arm wrestling for me and a lot of other people that I spend time with in the club is that support, that camaraderie, that friendship, that trying to help each other. And you know, when you're so far ahead of your opponent and you're just sort of talking down to them and making them, embarrassing them, basically, is how I felt it came across. And I didn't like it. I didn't think it was a good look.
White Wolf, he said something. He goes, why? Here we go. He goes, Paul, you're an idiot. Big names won't draw the mainstream. You dope, and nobody knows Devin outside of arm wrestling. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, I think what the promoters are trying to do with these events is they're trying to get some sort of return. They're trying to at least break even or make a little profit, but also trying to get other eyes on the sport. And for them to do that, you kind of got to have a guy like Devin, because having Devin on that card kind of almost guarantees you're going to at least get the whole arm wrestling community to buy your show. And I think that it's been proven, with Core Sports, because when Devin's not on the card, I'm hearing that they're taking massive losses. So White Wolf, what I'm trying to say is, not everybody's cool with just throwing these events and losing, a couple $100,000 and see no returns. So I think, when they actually have some of these mainstream guys on it, they're at least coming close to even, or, you know what I mean? So I think that's kind of where they're at right now. You're kind of in a rock and a hard place, and then, not too many people are tuning in to these events that are non-arm wrestlers. So I think they're trying to get like matches to a non-arm wrestler that might be interesting in their eyes. Like when you see a guy like Odin going against, the Korean Hulk, you see this like jacked little 300-pound dude looking guy, and then you see Odin with no muscle tone or anything get on there and beat this guy with technique. To a non-arm wrestler, that might have been, interesting to them. They might not have understood how Odin could do that, and you might gain some interest. That's what I'm assuming they were going at after this, and kind of what Dave was saying before. What market are they trying to do? Are they trying to beat across network and get these new eyes on the sport? And then when you got a guy like Leonidas, this bodybuilding looking stud, going against Devin, who's, tall and stringy, and he's not big Devin right now. So, to a non-arm wrestler, that might be amazing to them, being like, oh, wow, like how did that guy beat this jack dude like that? Where us arm wrestlers are looking at these matches and we're like, yo, this makes no sense at all. It's not even a match. So, I think you guys have kind of hit it with that, where Core Sports might be trying to be that cross network. Now, did they do a good job at it? I don't think so, because, if a non-arm wrestler did tune into that last King of Table, I don't think they're going to be tuning into many more or buying that pay-per-view. What's your guys' thoughts on that comment?
Well, I think we're running out of credible alternatives for somebody like Devin. Like, I mean, arm wrestling fans know there aren't too many credible alternatives. So if you're seeking to attract a non-arm wrestling audience, that's maybe, that there is some attraction there, because you do look at that, you see a massive dude, and then you see a stringy guy, old stringy guy, and how's this going to pan out? And there is a little story there, but it's arm wrestling's in a tough spot there. In a really tough spot, because there's not enough money to develop the stories of the athletes you haven't heard about yet.
And we got a Pro Panja League in the chat. He says, "Thanks for the shout out, guys. Thank you for tuning in, Pro Panja. Hell yeah."
Is that Pavan, or is that somebody else?
It might be Abhishek, but Abhishek. That's absolute fantastic to see him in the chat. I think we were talking before about the post-produced element is the way that I would do things. But if you're going to do something live, I think Arm Gods is probably your perfect example of how to do that, where that atmosphere in that room. I mean, Paul Maiden comes out and he's cheering. They've got inflatable stuff going all over the room, and there's red lighting, and people are drinking and having music, and it's like, oh, like you get wrapped up in that, and it's like, oh, I want to be there. I want to go to that, not only because of what's happening with the actual sport, but because that room looks like a whole heap of fun. And that's most of the reason why I wanted to go all the way to Ireland, because it's like, these guys are having a tremendous time. And then there's arm wrestling as well. And it's like, I want to go to that. I want to be part of that. So I think if you're going to do a live event, make it exciting, make that room, like it's all about the people in that room. And then you just happen to turn a camera on as well. And you've got, if you do good production, the people who are watching at home, they're almost jealous of like, man, I wish I was there. I wish I was seeing this in person. Imagine that. It'd be so amazing. That's the element there. Even if it's a long setup, you're probably going to get all these boom. Like if you had a 13-minute setup at Arm Gods, people be throwing popcorn at them, they'd be throwing their shoes at them, they'd be screaming at them. I think that side of it really works well from that aspect in terms of a live audience needs an exciting atmosphere for the people who are there in the room.
I think East versus West nailed it in North America with that by throwing a tournament at the same time. Throwing a tournament right before. Now you got at least 300 people, going to come to that super matches. And Knuckles Up kind of learned that, and they're doing that on their next event, January 25th. They're throwing the last Arnold qualifier. So there's going to be a huge amount of people, probably 300 to 500 people in the room. And now when you pan that around, like you said, Dave, on their last one, it was kind of like an empty room looking. And, I think you guys nailed it. We need that high energy, like think of the WAL days, when they had that, it was like kind of looked like a UFC event. Even knowing that they were paying for the crowd to come there, they were filling the room, they were paying people to come there and all, but it just gave you that like excitement, and that you wanted to be there. So I definitely agree. That is a big thing, is the crowd, the energy. Pro Panja is the perfect example. I just remember when Pradeep at the first one, and he was like, bro, you got to watch this event. This is just amazing. And when I watched it, I was so excited. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like there was so many people, just the teams alone. They had like, like 100 guys on each team, and the teams are so vested in it because it's their athlete going against another team. And you just felt that energy. And I just kept saying to myself, oh my God, I got to go to India. I got to be at one of these events and see it firsthand. It was just real exciting. So I think that's definitely something that the production's got to keep in mind. I think, King of Table could definitely learn and prosper from that, because, I seen exactly what you were saying earlier when they panned out. I know they kept everything dark, so you couldn't really see, but you could kind of see, and there was only like 20 people in there. And I kind of remember when I first went to that East versus West 4, and, I looked back, I was sitting in the VIP in the front row, and I was so excited. But when I look back, there was maybe like 30, 40 other people other than the athletes and their families there. And I was just like, you lost a lot of that energy. But now, they kind of got it, and they got, they brought the crowd up on the stage to kind of give that like surrounding feeling and people cheering and all that. So I think that is definitely a major part. And I also think Arm Gods did that, right? Just like you said, Matt. And, I like how they get the crowd going and everybody's yelling, ahoo, ahoo. And it's like, you feel like you're in a gladiator coliseum when it's all going on. And and I think that energy is just something that is 100% needed, and it's contagious. All the crowd, you're paying this pay-per-view and you're seeing and hearing it all. You're like, that's it, man. That's what you expect at one of these big pro events. You want to see that.
So Savage Arm Wrestling before made a comment that it's up to the promotion to essentially promote the athletes, and in some part it is, of course, promotion. That's one part of what they do. But as I was saying before, these promotions aren't run by like media organizations with 5 people on board who are cutting up content for the athletes and whatnot. Usually, if an athlete already is doing that themselves, it's of huge benefit to promotion, of huge benefit. And so, if you're one of those athletes who says, I'm a really good arm wrestler, but I'm not getting opportunities, but I'm not going to do social media, I want to be recognized as an athlete, I don't think you're going to get far unless you are genuinely the best in the world. No one's going to care. You've got to have a story. You've got to develop that story over time. You've got to create a following in order to be relevant enough to have the opportunities for a promotion to invest in you and pay for your flights, pay for your accommodation, offer your prize money, offer your attendance fee, and put you on. You want to do all of that and have 0 followers or 0 influence or not bring anything to the table. You're making yourself a gamble not worth taking. and you're also demonstrating to the rest of the world that you're not that serious about the sport. Really, you might really like the sport, but you're not serious about the business of the sport, and it's the business of the sport that pays the bills. So 100%, if you're an arm wrestler and you're not getting the opportunities that you want right now, look at your social media and look at what you can do and spend 10 hours a week on it, because there's promoters out there not earning a cent, dedicating 20, 30 hours a week and running businesses and having families and doing all of that to run a promotion that they break even on or make no money on. So if you can't even invest in time into yourself, developing a story about you that people care about, why would a promoter throw a cent at you? So that's one of the frustrations in the sport currently, is that athletes aren't taking themselves seriously enough to be viable for promoters to take a gamble on them, and they're frustrated at that. We're frustrated. We would love everybody to have a following already to walk in the door. We spend a lot of time with our athletes, working with them to help them to develop those profiles, and so that they can get their numbers up quickly. But I don't think the other promotions are necessarily going to help you too much with that type of stuff. So it's going to be on you to develop your own profile. Then you'll be amazed at the opportunities that unfurl before you.
Yeah, I agree. And I always tell people that. And, you know, some of the old purists, they get mad when I say that. And I'm like, you got to build your own social media. That is so important. When I hear all these great new young up and coming arm wrestlers, the first thing I say to them is, did you get your YouTube channel going? You know, that's your platform right there. Then you don't have to depend on anybody else. That's when you're going to have the promoters hitting you up. And now you're not hitting up the promoter telling them how good of an arm wrestler you are. If they don't know you already, that's a problem right there. You got to get out there and you got to make your noise. But I also understand what other people are saying is, you know, it's hard. You know, a lot of these guys are working full-time jobs and all. And, you know, the limited time they have, they're using for training and stuff like that rather than building their social media. Because I'm one of those guys that's out there on social media and all, and it's almost like a full-time job in itself. You know, so you kind of got to figure out the balance and figure out what works for you. And then, you know, something else that I was thinking is you might want to find, you know, people that could help you out, run your channel and help promote you. You know, that might be a business out there for people that are good with promotions and all, is start, you know, going up to these athletes and being like, you charge a fee. And now you start making their videos for them, start editing out their YouTube and, you know, just getting them out there, you know. And a good example is, you know, when I first came into the sport, you know, I was hanging out with Travis and all them. And I'm like, yo, so who's some of these big arm wrestlers out there that aren't out there? Like, they're not good at with their social media and all. And he was like, you know, Jerry Catterett, bro. He's one of those guys that, you know, he's a great arm wrestler. We got to get him back in the sport. You know, he hasn't really been competing. So right away, I started looking at the videos of old Jerry and all, because I didn't know him when I first came into the sport. And I was like, oh shit, this is like somebody that needs help. And I hit him up right away and I was like, yo, bro, what's up, man? You know, I'm pretty good with promotions and, you know, maybe I could build you a channel and we could start getting you out there. And, you know, we started doing that and I kind of brought him out of retirement with that. And I started getting him out there. And then next thing you know, Engen's hitting him up and, you know, getting him on the card. And now he's starting to, you know, blow up and now he's going against the top guys in the world. And that's just, you know, an example of somebody right there that, you know, benefit from stuff like that. You know, and then I see guys like, you know, this kid, Landon Anderson, you know, he's a stud in his area. I think he's over in like Tennessee area and, you know, he's a teenager and, you know, they came to me and they came on the show and they were telling me how they want to see him going against Auden. So the first thing I said to them, I was like, yo, you got to get more out there. It doesn't make sense for Auden to take that match because it's kind of a lose-lose. If he goes in there and he loses to you, there goes the hype train. If he goes and wins, he's not going to get any notification or like anything good from it because nobody knew who Landon was, you know. So I started trying to, you know, I put out that challenge and I put some money on Landon and said, all right, Auden, you know, we'll back him here. And now after that, people are starting to talk about him a lot, you know, and I keep pushing that match. I want to see these top teams going at it to see who's the top team of North America and all. But now people are interested and they want to see Landon in action now. So it's just like little things like that that could help you get out there. And, maybe some of you guys that are pretty good with YouTube or social media platforms, maybe you could start a business like that and start, hire, you could be the person to build up these people and all. What do you guys think of that, man? Do you think that's like the trend of the future?
I think we've might be one step ahead of you with that, Paul. We've actually started an AWE talent management business. So we've got several athletes signed already that we're pushing heavily on social media and making sure that they get the best opportunities that they can. And it is for people like, for example, like Richard Borman. It's he's working full time. He doesn't do a lot of the social media stuff. And we just said, look, just send us one video a day, and it can be just you in the gym, just training, and we'll put it out there and we'll build from there, and just telling his story and pushing him as a talent. And the thing is, if I work as an actor as well, and my agents take 20% of a fee, if I get a job. And one quote that I heard that I thought is applicable to that is, if they're getting 20% of my revenue, I should be putting 80% of, at least 80% in, on promoting myself to get that job. So your agent is going to do a certain percentage, maybe it's 20% of what you needed to actually get the job from the professional side of things, but 80% of that needed to come from you to do the performance, to have an audience, to have people recognizing who you are, to have the talent and skill. So if you're not willing to put in that amount of effort, like, if you're looking for the promoter to be putting in 80%, you're going to do 20%. It doesn't work that way. Like, promoters don't have enough time to commit to. If you've got a card with, say, 20 athletes, how are you going to put 80% of your time with 20 different people trying to promote all of them? It's like, you're going to hire people that are already doing that for themselves, already have their own built-in audience.
Yeah, and that's the frustration in arm wrestling at the moment, is that it's not a full-time job for too many people, and a lot of these things require full-time attention. So, like everybody that's in the sport, that at the moment we're trying to work out how, if we could just dedicate 50 or 60 hours a week to our arm wrestling business, how does that arm wrestling business look in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years time? And so, getting to a pathway where arm wrestling is a full-time business for people like us here, where we can take our considerable energies, resources, and expertise and I guess acumen, and apply it to arm wrestling. Now, if we could do that, instead of maybe spending a couple of hours on a podcast here and a few hours giving it thought there and a bit of time in a chat here and blah blah blah, if it went from 15 to 20 and became the 60 hours a week that we might dedicate to the other things that we do, all of a sudden, the landscape in arm wrestling is transformed. So finding these alternative ways to continue. So the problem for the arm wrestling athlete is that they can't be a full-time arm wrestler. They've got to work, and then they've got a family, and then they've got to train, and on top of that, there's social media commitments. So none of it, well, the arm wrestling, or the thing that they like the least, gets done. It doesn't get done at all, or doesn't get done very well. And from our perspective, it's the same. So you can't throw all of your energies into, well, we can't throw all of our energies into AWE, because, well, we've got to put food on the table for our families as well, and AWE doesn't do that at the moment. But I would love to be in that position where that's exactly what we can do. And I think if there's, at the moment, there might be, I don't know, is there 3 people, 4 people, 5 people in the world that have got a full-time job out of arm wrestling? I don't know. Let's say there's a dozen. How arm wrestling looks when there's 3,000 that are dedicating their livelihood to it, it's a lot different. And that could happen in a year's time, 2 years' time. It can happen really, really quickly. So the quicker we can make arm wrestling a profession, and the quicker that we can make it people's full-time jobs, the faster the sport grows.
We got a super chat from White Wolf for $2. He says, "Sorry, did I forget to say fuck waff?" Thank you for that, brother. So yeah, I really like what you're saying, Matt, with the whole promoting the athletes and all. And it's got my head. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, that might be something I might want to get into in North America. I already got the promotion company and all, and that might be another approach for
doing it a
me.
little bit.
Yeah, it might have a new business being and built right here on the Buzz Show right now, because
Forget
I've
about
definitely did it with a lot of athletes already, but I haven't actually locked in any contracts or anything like that. I never looked to do something like that, but that is something of value that I could bring to the stage and get people to get that spotlight and all, and it would make sense then for me as long as I'm getting compensation, and then I don't mind putting in all the time and building up. And I think there's others that would be able to do that with their platforms as well. So, this might be a new business for everybody to start looking into and get involved.
You're already, I can see the cogs turn, Paul. You're running through business names as we speak.
Yeah, I really am. I got like my list in front of me. I'm like, oh, I could do that with so and so, and Landon Anderson, hit me up, brother. We might be able to work something out.
You'll be the new talent agent for arm wrestling.
There you go. Like I don't have enough businesses already going and all, but yeah, whatever spare time I got, I could get into that as well. I wanted to talk about the whole the WAF thing real quick. I don't want to go too far into it, but we there's still a lot of stuff going on with the WAF, and they actually hit us Knuckles Up and a bunch of the other promoters, and they put us in a group, and the guy Simon started saying, well, if you guys want to find out what it takes to get a WAF person international on your events card, we could talk it over and get on a Zoom call and all like that. So there is talks going on in the background. I mean, I didn't see anything come from this group yet. I just saw what he was hoping, and there's not much communication going on in this group or whatever, but they are reaching out and bringing, I guess, up so that people could kind of follow the guidelines, so to say. But there also is other things. I had Jordan Sonov and the Bulgarians on my channel, and he was just kind of he opened up and started saying what was actually going on, and it was like enlightening to me, because I kept hearing like corruption and money being hidden and all, and I didn't really understand everything, but he kind of broke it down, and he was saying that he was seeing actual documents of camps WAF was throwing, and he was one of the trainers on it, but he wasn't notified of this. So obviously, the funds were being put out, so to say, Jordan Sonov, but he was not aware of this, and he was like, where is the money going? And they have a lawyer. They have a lawyer that is investigating all this, and I think there might be a lawsuit going on and is active. That lawyer actually contacted me, and he said, I love watching your show, and I really want to come on and kind of just clear up a lot of things, because he didn't like when Devin came on the 98 podcast. He got to see that, and he said there was a lot of things that were not true, and he kind of wanted to clear the air on all that. So, we're in talks right now. We're trying to work out a schedule, because I think right now he might be in Greece with the whole, world competition going on. But he said soon as he comes back from that, he wanted to come and just clear the air and kind of just tell everything he knows, and, what's actually the lawsuits about, and, what the problems are. And, because I kind of was in shock when Jordan was telling me, some of the things and the stuff that was going on. And that is pretty much the first person I've heard go out in public and say it. So if you guys haven't checked it out, I have the full interview up on my channel with Jordan Sonov, and Saveton was on for only like 5 minutes. He didn't have a good Wi-Fi. He was in Greece in his car, and the connection was just horrible. But Jordan went on for about an hour and 45 minutes, and I'd say about 30 to 45 minutes was talking about the WAF and all the corruption that he's experienced and what's going on with the bands and all. So I really encourage everybody to go check that out. And like I said, we're working out with the lawyer. We'll actually get him on here. I don't know if it's going to be able to work during the buzz hours, because the time time difference and all could be an issue. I think it might be like 2-3 o'clock in the morning when we're actually on, but I will work out something. Maybe we'll do a special buzz show, and we'll change the time around and just make it work. And this way everybody could kind of be on the same page. And I'm also going to keep everybody up to date with what Simon is saying in this group. And, if the Zoom call actually goes down with all the promoters, I'll definitely keep everybody updated and all that. So, that is, what's going on with the WAF. What is your whole thoughts with the whole WAF bans and all that, Dave?
Well, I mean, look, it's politics. You get enough people in a room that have got a vested interest, and you're bound to find factions and people with different ideas and feelings about how things should be run and done. And it's just the unfortunate consequence of life. And the more money involved, the more these things are going to get political. WAF bans, that type of thing. I mean, if they've got the critical mass to be the governing body and to be, you can only enforce rules if you have authority. And the sport, by and large, has entrusted WAF as that body. So if you're going to be a part of it, you've got to play by the rules. Now, what I don't like is if you're not a part of it, the expectation to play by the rules anyway. And that can be that grates me, and I don't feel like that is appropriate. So in other words, you've got to acknowledge their authority even though they have no authority over you. And I think that's that overreach and authority is where where things get squirrely, and where we've got to kind of work out where the demarcation line is here. What does WAF have control over, and what does it not have control over? And is WAF actually happy to not have control over something? Or does it want to have control over everything? Now, if its ambition is to have control over everything, it's going to be at war with someone at some time, always. So good luck to them if that's their ambition. It's going to be constant conflict. And if you're going to want to, are you going to be that authority and hold that degree of power? Then you've got to be proven to be a good custodian of it, and to be able to administer in such a way that is corruption free, and where there's transparency, and where there's understanding, where there's stakeholder engagement. So you can't have the authority and not have the stakeholder engagement. You can't have the authority and the money and all of the control and not be transparent. This seems to be the issues that not just WAF, but a lot of governing bodies have. I mean, you have exactly the same thing with the Olympics Organising Committee. This happens at the peak level of a lot of sports. I think what needs to happen, and I think this comes down to the US more than anything, because WAF have less influence in the US than what they do elsewhere. I think there has to be, in the US, a line drawn in the sand, where it's like, WAF, this is where your authority goes up to, not beyond. You don't overstep that mark, and you won't have any problems with us, and we won't come in to your side, and everything will be okay. And we're all free to do what we want to do. But in our freedom of doing what we want to do, you can't come and say, no, you can't do that anymore. You've got to change that. You can't have those athletes or So that's, I think it's up to the promoters if WAF's reaching out to them now, because I think, WAF doesn't have the same organizational structure in North America as it does elsewhere. I think it's North America is where the money's at. It's the big economy. It's where the sport's got the greatest commercial potential, and and at the moment, the promoters have some input and say, and should really do everything they can to be very clear on, if you're not going to be transparent and you're not going to be open and you're not going to, and then the door's closed here. And you shut them out of the biggest market in the world. Europeans hate it because they know if they can't crack America, they're always barely profitable. It doesn't matter if they're car makers, stereo manufacturers, it doesn't matter. Whatever Europe wants to sell, if they can't get access to the US market, it's why Fiat's never been a very successful car company and always struggled financially. It's because they could never crack the US market. And so if WAF can't crack the US, it's always going to be a little bit borderline, a little bit shaky and stuck where it is.
The only problem I see with that is now with East versus West, coming into North America, and they're kind of bringing WAF along with the ride, just because of all the ties and connections back to Turkey with the government over there, and see that's where the only problem is. And then the other thing that was real surprising to me was I was always under the impression that arm wrestling didn't equal money, big money. We were still trying to figure that out. But after talking with Jordan and finding out how much money, he didn't say actual numbers, but I just started figuring things out for myself. And if they're doing so much with just one country of Bulgaria, and there's all this like hidden money and training camps, and the government is just giving them in each country, we're talking like a racket here. This is big money now. This is, so there is a lot of money being funded and behind the scenes. And, if they're doing these training camps in all these countries, and, just the WAF leadership is collecting all it, we're talking about some serious money. And now it's kind of dribbling into North America through East versus West. And that's the problem where I see it's like, it'd be great to say, here's your line and all, but now with East versus West being connected with WAF, and they're married, so to say, which they definitely are. They, WAF is connected with the Turkish government, Engin works with the Turkish government, all his funds are coming from there. So everything is intermingled. And now this is coming to North America. So how do we go and we stop that? How do we stop that, all that money getting into here, and now them starting to control and everything? And I could just see how Simon's hitting us promoters up. It was all the guys that were, connected to East versus West, and then they brought in Knuckles Up and, a couple of the other ones. And then Knuckles Up is like, whoa, well, we got to add a bunch of other guys in here. And they started adding us in there into the group, and also we could see what's going on. And then that's when the conversation just stopped right there. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting right here. It was almost like they were pushing in, kind of like bullying around, like, this is what you guys got to do, the hoops you got to do. But, we're only going with the friendlies to East versus West. And then once we were brought into the conversation has just died. And that's what I was kind of meaning by everything. I'm really interested to see if the Zoom call actually goes down now with all the other promoters that aren't so East versus West friendly. And, where is this going to go? You know what I mean?
Well, East versus West has become by proxy WAF, and so they qualify as a WAF. So this is they've established a feeder organization essentially, or association so there's a pathway to East versus West. They've done very well in establishing East versus West as the premier promotional brand and the aspirational brand for athletes. So every young athlete in the world wants to one day be in East versus West. Well, do they actually? No, they just want to compete in the best organization, and it just happens to be East versus West at the moment. You can apply any label you want to that. It doesn't matter. Whichever one's the best and gets the most attention, is the most relevant, it'll be the one that wins. That is usually, and this is with some surprise, usually that organization, with the exception of kind of soccer, is based in North America. So it doesn't matter if it's UFC, NFL, usually America is the home to the dominant commercial sports, in the Western sphere. So it is of some degree of surprise that it's not at the moment. And it's a rare opportunity for the Europeans to penetrate that marketplace whilst they've got the premier brand banner above them in order to pursue this. It's the promoters that are coordinating with the East versus West qualifiers that have put in the fuel on this fire, though. They're not making things better by cooperating necessarily. They're painting themselves into a corner because they are laying down the groundwork for an infrastructure that will last long after their promotion has long since failed. So, because why? People are attracted to the brand. So it doesn't matter if it's a Paul Italia run East versus West promotion. In 5 years' time, people forget the Paul Italia bit is even involved. It's now the East versus West qualifier and has been for 5 years. So that, I think that's, and I don't know, But it would be my strategy would be to infiltrate that community in order to make allies of them so that they can help lay down that infrastructure so that they do have a base and remain that aspirational promotion at the highest level of the sport. I think there's a window where they could do that in the US and be the dominant global superpower, a super league of arm wrestling potentially. But I think if that window closes and the US doesn't jump on board, I think they've lost that opportunity forever. And I think they're probably quite mindful of that their grip on the sport is, and they probably see the East versus West pay-per-view numbers, and they also probably see the percentage of buyers. And I can tell you they're not coming from the East. People in Turkey aren't paying $35 for a pay-per-view event. So people in Romania are coming up with $35 to watch a pay-per-view event. So the money's not coming from the East. The power's in the East at the moment because they've got the money, because the sport doesn't generate the money. They're getting the sport from other sources. So we just got to work out how to make more money out of sport, make sport independent, so we're not susceptible to the infiltration of external political forces.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And just like you said, I would say 85 to 90% of all the pay-per-view buys and all the money in arm wrestling is coming from, North America. I think that would be a pretty fair number to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you add money to anything, that's where you get problems. And there was a great comment a second ago from Savage Arm Wrestling, who says that he's putting events together. Where is it here? Sorry. So in their eyes, let me bring it up for you. I made it so I can't read it. So hang on. So basically, the problem is, and I think this is why it's become a talking point, is that they're having influence over other promotions and which athletes they can put on. And it's like, well, hang on a sec. If we're running in New Jersey, say Knuckles Up, they've put their time, their effort into their own promotion. They've set out contracts with their athletes for that event. They're promoting the event. They're doing everything right that they possibly can to grow the sport of arm wrestling. And then another organization from across the other side of the world says, "Oh, no, you can't use that person." It's like, hang on a minute. Like, who are you? Oh, well, they won't ever be able to compete with us again if they compete with you.
They're like, from the unions.
You don't mess with the union.
But we're out of here. So it is exactly that dilemma. And even on the other side of the world, where you think we might be somewhat more insulated from this, it's absolutely not the case. And we've had communications and attempts to change things on it. Well, things have changed on it, because there's absolutely no doubt about that. And it's the reality at the moment is that WAF can't always 100% impose its will, but as a promoter or as an athlete, you've got to weigh up, well, if I'm going to have any type of future in this sport, say in the near term, the next, maybe if you're an athlete and you're 35 years old, you might be thinking your peak's going to be in the next 5 or 10 years. And all the evidence before you is that East versus West is going to be where you've got to be if you're going to make money out of this moment, this window in your career. So I can completely appreciate why an athlete would then align accordingly and put their eggs in that basket. But I also see that if WAF continue to exert their influence in this way, they will either win, in which case you're going to be set. The sport will be under some form of tyranny, because we can already see if they act like tyrants without the power, wait until they've got all the power. So this is just a taste of what's to come if they have more power than what they have now. If they if they have less power, does their behavior become better? Or maybe it does. But if they have more power, does it become better? No, I don't think it does. So I think the US is really key in all of this, or North America in particular, Canada, United States, because that's where the money market is. That's where the people if it doesn't matter if the event's in Turkey, the people that are buying it are not in Turkey, and where the money is where the power should be, and the power should be on the side of freedom and opportunity, not on the side of tyranny and those people that wish to impose their will, because for no other reason, it's in their best interest and they can.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I want to just thank you guys, man. This was an amazing show. Everybody's commenting about it in the chat and all. We really touched on some great topics today. And Dave, you really brought in so much knowledge and so much great insight on everything. And I really appreciate you coming on. And I just want to shout out you guys a big event one more time. So October 27th, we got the Grand Prix number 2. And yes, definitely everybody get over that AWE Underground YouTube channel. Go subscribe. It's a free show. It's going to be amazing. They're going to be putting out that beautiful belt right there. We're going to get to see Rickard go defend it against 7 other just absolute monsters in the game. Really, really can't wait. And then we got so many other great matches. You know, we got that ladies match where, you know, this lady's literally Ashley is, you know, bench pressing practically cars around and all that. So that is definitely one of those matches I'm very, very excited about. Is there anything else, Dave, you would like to, you know, put out there, or any media platforms that you want people to hit you up on?
Oh no, they can avoid me. That's all perfectly fine. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to come on the podcast, and for Hollywood Matt Connolly for all of his efforts and endeavours when it comes to AWE and taking that bullet and going to India and not eating for 10 days. Well, no longer than that.
23.
23 days. Can he do it?
23.
23. Oh, get out of here. Oh, well, good luck. Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for all that you do for the sport, and thanks to all those people that tune in and get something out of the podcast as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to throw in there one more thing. You know, Italia Arm Wrestling Promotions has a big announcement. May 31st, I'm getting back in the game. I'm going to be throwing a great event. We have the weekend locked in. It's going to be going down in North Carolina. There's going to be a lot to be announced until then. You know, it's pretty far out, but I just wanted to kind of get that out there. You know, I'm going to start throwing some good events again. I'm going to really focus on the tournaments. I am looking to throw 10 super matches. We're going to do like a prelim card the night before, and then we're gonna do right before the tournament, do like 3 on the main card. So if you guys are interested and you're anywhere on that East Coast or anywhere in the country and you want to come and make the trip and all, and you're looking to have a great super match, hit me up. I'm going to be real picky on the ones that I choose, you know, just because there's not many openings for it, and I really want to make the best that I can. It'll all be going down on my YouTube channel. I'm not going to do any pay-per-view or anything like that, but you know, I'm just getting out there. Also shopping for sponsors. If you guys want to get out there and get your brand out there, you know, we'll be doing a lot of sponsor work. Be all on the banners, the flyers. We're going to be doing a lot of merchandise for the event as well, and I could also get you on the Arm Wrestling Buzz Show. So just something to think about. That'll be May 3rd of 31st in North Carolina. It's a new area, a new market for me. I never threw an event over there, but I know there's a lot of great arm wrestlers over there that want to spotlight and all that. So just letting that be known to everybody. I want to also thank everybody in the chat. A lot of great questions tonight. Really appreciate that. And, you know, we got the regulars in there, and we got some other guys, some new guys in there, which I like to see as well. And John Boy, whenever you're ready for Rickard, man, we'll get you that match as well. I know John Boy wanted a match with Rickard as well. But yeah, thank you guys. And Matt, one last thing. Can you talk with the Propanjali owner and see if we could get him on? And you know, I know that people would love to hear from him. And you want to just give us a quick update? I know you know, some things changed and all, and before we call it night, you just want to catch everybody up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pravin Dvas is the man, and Abhishek Singh, who's in the comments at the moment as well. But Pravin Dvas is the man behind Propanja Arm Wrestling, and unfortunately was involved in a very serious car accident not long ago, probably a week ago. Was in intensive care, and he's still recovering from that. And so unfortunately they've had to postpone league, which was supposed to be taking place, I think, starting today and running through until the 20th of October. I'm not sure if they've actually announced when they're going to be doing that. Yeah, it will take place, but I'm hearing December is when they're looking to reschedule it. But yes, it will be a tremendous event, and I know all the athletes are all primed and ready, and it's going to be phenomenal. Abhishek Singh would be a great guest to have on here, as well as Praveen Dabas himself, once he's recovered from his accident.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And he just said we would love to be on the podcast. So, Matt, if you can, maybe we can make that into the schedule and all. And Matt, we really want to see your whole trip there. I hope you put everything out on YouTube. And then, you know, each week when we got you on the buzz, kind of give us the update. If you come across some great athletes, which we know there's tons out there in India, if you could just get them to come on as well, we'd love to see them come visit. And definitely let Brian Bowen know he's always welcome. We want to hear about his trip over there as well. I seen him sleeping on the floor in the airport today. He looked exhausted and all. He was taking a nap on the floor with his nice knuckles up backpack, the purple one, and all that. So I hope he had a nice nap and he gets there safely, and you guys could have some good times and some good arm wrestling clubs and get to visit everybody over there.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
Let's see that double biceps, everybody. Oh yeah, there we go. Well, have a great night, everybody. Thank you again for coming on.